Oh, yeah. Got the
Welcome,
official warning. Here we are.
There you go. Welcome everybody. See, I'm all over the place. Welcome everybody back to Dong City. Vince Mercandetti, Henry Maldonado. Told you guys we'd be back. Here we are.
Our monthly visit over here, Henry. How are you doing
Here
today?
we go. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Representing as always.
That's right. Yeah.
Representing both ways.
I'm joining you today.
There you go.
We're in the Clemente because I think the talk of April right now is the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll get more into that later. This is the closest thing I've got to anything Pirates related. So that's
I don't think you're alone in that.
yeah, so that's where it is. If I look sickly or sound sickly, it's because I am getting over a sickness, so you'd be accurate in that assumption. But thank you for joining. See, Aaron and Randy are already here. Welcome, guys. We have a big show tonight, and it's nice that we do this like once a month type stuff because we get a lot of content. We don't have to discuss like the current events you can see on ESPN or whatever the hell. We can just kind of discuss everything as a whole. And that's what we plan on doing tonight. We're going to go through all of the divisions. We're going to go through probably half of MLB at least and discuss those teams in depth. We'll touch on everyone. But there are certain teams who I think are just kind of doing what we expect. Don't need to really focus on it as much. But here we are, Henry Maldonado, Vince Mercandetti. I've got everything on right around me, Henry. So if I get distracted and just, stop paying attention, it's because I'm not paying attention. But I have the Yankees over here, Rangers, Devils over here. Just found out Darren Fox, is that his name, on the Kings?
Yeah.
Fractured his fingertip, which I didn't know was a thing.
I think I fractured my fingertip in high school, but that's another story for another day.
Don't even want to know how. How do you fracture a fingertip?
In high school or now?
Just in general, like how does the tip get fractured?
Backstage.
I know other tips that can get fractured. I don't know that one.
I don't know. I'm guessing maybe, something popped them and that happens.
Yeah, that's fair. Joey just gave me the best compliment ever. He said I look normal. So it's the nicest thing he's ever said to me.
You're like our resident Italian Puerto Rican.
Exactly. Well, yeah, like skirt the line. Scores underway right now. Rockies kicking the Guardians' ass. Red Sox had a big lead early. Orioles came back. We'll talk about them, I'm sure, too. Tampa and Houston. Tampa trying to make me look bad. I like that. I'll take it at the expense of the Astros. They're winning that game right now. Texas over the Reds. White Sox lead Toronto almost midway through. Braves over the Marlins. Yankees, Twins scoreless. Get used to that from the Yankees all the time. Brewers up 1-0 on the Tigers. And I think that's all the scores we have right now. So we'll keep you updated there. If you're a hockey fan, Devils lead the Rangers after 1. We're not happy about that. And
Rangers are going to come back.
Yeah, that game's not over.
After the way the last game ended, they have to win this game.
Very frustrating if you're a Rangers fan. They didn't play badly, but then you can relate to this if you're a Yankee fan too. They didn't play badly, they didn't score very much, and they could have won the game and didn't. So there's that. Let's start in the NL West. And first of all, big picture with the NL. It's a very weird league right now. If you had preseason predictions, only about the NL East is going like mostly how you expected. The rest of the league is totally whacked out right now.
Yeah, everyone's taking early victory laps on their predictions. And I'm like, it's week 4. Like, relax.
Yeah, I'm a pretty superstitious fan. So even when the Yankees were like on 120 win pace, that's kind of like where I'd leave it. I'm like, the Yankees are on 120 win pace. I think they'll regress down. I think my number was 105. That's what I felt they could have won. They regressed all the way down to 99 because they became historically bad for like 6 weeks. But I'm not an April victory lap guy, and honestly, as a Yankee fan, and this will rub some people the wrong way, I'm really not a regular season victory lap guy at this point. I'd love for the Yankees to win home field advantage once in the Aaron Boone era and actually do that, but other than that, when you're a fan of a team that's had a winning record for 30 years in a row, it doesn't mean as much. I've seen my team miss the playoffs. I've never seen them be bad. I don't get my jollies really on the regular season anymore. I'm very jaded.
I just want to show you how weird this league is. The Diamondbacks, the Bucks, the Rangers are in first place. Baltimore has the second best winning percentage in all of baseball.
Yeah, so NL West, where we start, Diamondbacks in first. They're tied with the Dodgers going into tonight, 12 and 11. Which those are two massive stories right there for different reasons. The Diamondbacks are 12 and 11. That's a big story because they're above 500, 23 games into the season. -4 run differential, but when you're about 500, that's not that crazy. They're starting to fall off a little, lost 6 out of 10. The Dodgers are 12 and 11, and the sky is falling comparatively. That's a team I think you just expect at this point to break out to 17 and 6 or whatever. And, to start the year, you expect them to just take off from the start. They're not doing that. Plus 19 run differential. You can argue maybe they're going to start winning some more. And then the Padres, who were both of our picks to win the division, at 500, 12 and 12. So none of those teams are really far out at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a half game and they're tied. So
outside of Colorado's like the worst team in baseball, and they're not just losing; they're getting bombed. Like every loss is like a big loss. They're just getting their asses handed to them.
Yeah. -54 run differential. They're 6 and 17, which is not the worst record in baseball. It is the worst record in the NL, but not by much. Reds are 7 and 15. Nationals are 7 and 14.
I'm gonna guess Oakland has the worst record in baseball because they're just atrocious.
Well, yes, 4 and 18. Yeah. I thought for a second the Royals are 5.
The Royals, yeah.
So actually, the AL has the 2 worst teams in baseball right now. Anyway, NL West. Look, Diamondbacks and Henry, we picked division winners, obviously, and I think we were very similar in how we did it. And certainly there isn't a single team right now where I'd feel comfortable being like, this is where they're going to finish.
Yeah.
Even if they're, in the spot, I think they're going to finish. It's way too early. I always like to use this analogy. We're about a little more than 1/8 into the season. We're basically we're in the first quarter of week 3 of the NFL season. I think that's the perspective to have. Yeah. So even if you started 2-0 in the NFL, you're not exactly going to be like, hey, we've got a really good shot to go to the Super Bowl. That's where it's at. So yeah. MLB, it's too early to make any proclamations like that. But Diamondbacks, I like to tier my teams. And I know you do this too. If you went into the regular season, the Braves, the Dodgers, the Padres were probably, and the Mets were probably those 4 teams, I think, that are in that top tier. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Then you'd have the Cardinals, the Phillies,
and the Brewers.
And the Brewers would be that next tier where it's like they're probably going to make the playoffs. I'd pick them for wild cards and someone's got to win the Central, but they're probably not a World Series team, unless something drastic happens. And then after that, you've got the teams who could maybe challenge for 500. And in that category, I would have put the Marlins, the Cubs, and the Giants, and the Diamondbacks. Now, the Diamondbacks are challenging for 500. They're 12 and 11. That's why so early in the
whole division, yeah.
But they're in first place. So I think what they're doing is sustainable. I don't think it's that crazy.
I didn't expect them to be, this good. And I say that because if you look at their record, their schedule, they've played the Dodgers twice, the Padres twice, the Brewers, and the Marlins, and the Cardinals. That's pretty impressive to still be in first place in that division, playing that difficult of a schedule. So you got to give them some props. Right.
It's a good schedule, and they are above 500. I would have picked them probably for about 78 ish wins off the top of my head. Yeah, no, they're off to a great start. Again, the last 10 games, they haven't been so hot. They've lost 6 of their last 10. They lost 2 in a row. They have a negative run differential now. They're 6 and 5 at home, 6 and 6 away. So nothing to, see there, but yeah, they're off to a nice start. This is the start you sign up for if you're a Diamondbacks fan. If we ask Corey Decker right now, I think he'd say he'd take this. Aaron Lopez, quick fire question at us in the comments over here. 1.5 times over under Oakland gets no hit this season. I'm going to take the over.
I was looking at the comment section. They're popping today.
Yeah, I like this. If you guys have any questions at any point about any team,
throw them in. The show goes where you want it to go.
Yeah, and we'll touch on Oakland real quick. They're doing exactly.
That's a hell of a question, and I'm gonna go over as well. I think 2 or at least 2.
Yeah,
they have a negative. They have a negative. How the fuck is this possible so early to say a negative 103 run differential?
they are historically bad. And really, I don't see any reason they can't challenge for at least the 2003 Tigers, who lost 119 games. When you think about it, and again, 4-18, I'm not basing it on that. I'm just basing it on their situation. Not a single fan will show up there the rest of the year.
That was silly to announce it so early.
Yeah, they're not going to invest a single dollar in that team. They are solely reliant on whatever that roster is, and that roster stripped down, and they're in a division that's improving, which we'll get to. So
you want to know something wild? They have a -3 run differential. If you add up everyone else in the division, the positive is still less than 103.
I love stuff like that.
Texas is +60, Houston is +27, LA is +8, and Seattle's +1.
Yeah, +96 for the rest of the division, all of them positive.
Insane.
Oakland's -103. That's awesome. So I mean, the NLS Diamondbacks are technically your story with the Dodgers. I feel like the Padres always get off to a slow start. I don't know that they're a great regular season team. We kind of expect them to be this year. I know Musgrove's hurt. That doesn't help. But
we talking about the Padres?
Yeah, they're a -13 run differential, which I like to use. I think it's a nice snapshot, especially in a small sample size.
I think 500 for them is not bad considering everything they've gone through so far. There's, like you said, there's no Musgrove, there's no Tatis, there's no Suarez. Machado and Soto are not themselves. Right. Which, by the way, I'm a big Juan Soto fan, but he's got to get on his shit already. This is kind of like season 3 where he's starting really bad. It's
I think he's got to be held accountable at this point. Even if he reverts to the some people say his career's falling off and he's putting together all-star seasons anyway.
He's 24 years old.
Yeah, even if he is that guy now, which I think we went through with Bryce Harper too, right? Ironically enough, that's who replaced Bryce. Bryce Harper was like, he had that 2015 season and you're like, this guy might be better than Trout and might be the best player in baseball. And then he kind of settled into like a Hall of Fame career. And some people are like, well, he never really reached his potential.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous to me. I feel the same way about Soto, is like his bad is still an all-star.
Yeah.
But you're right. He's not playing that level yet this season. He has been bad.
Yeah. So is Manny Machado. Manny Machado, his OPS is 536.
Yeah, Machado was an MVP candidate last year, the first few months. Like then the rest of the team caught up to him.
So you take that. Let me see there. 4 of their last 5 opponents have been the Diamondbacks, Braves, Mets, and Milwaukee. I mean, so considering that they're 500, I think that's a win.
So yeah, I agree with you. I'm fine with where the Padres are at. The Dodgers, I'm a little more surprised about. I haven't checked their schedule. I recall them. I think the Diamondbacks took a series from them. I feel like they got swept by someone. Those are kind of not Dodger-like things to have happen. But at the end of the day, they always have a good farm system, and they always have a ton of pitching injuries. They're like the one team that I feel like are on the Yankees levels with pitching injuries.
I do have to throw my Dodger fan friends, because I kept hearing how much they're going to turn Noah Syndergaard around, and they're going to be he sucks.
Yeah, the Dodgers are a very good organization, but they're not untouchable. Even Joey Gallo did not. I mean, people, every time he sneezed would tag me, but he didn't have a great time with the Dodgers. It was slightly better than with the Yankees. So they didn't fix him either. And Andrew Heaney, I think, was doing great with them, but he got hurt, and now he's doing well elsewhere in Texas. So the Dodgers are not infallible, but they are a very good franchise and well-run organization. Now they split with the Diamondbacks to open the season. They swept the Rockies. That's not a surprise. They lost 3 out of 4 to the Diamondbacks. That's the one that surprised me. That was the D-backs opening series. Lost 3 out of 4 there. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Cubs, who we'll get to in a second. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Mets, and then they won 3 out of 4 against the Cubs. So that's been their season so far. So
we have 2 questions in the comment section. One is, do we think the Dodgers are going to miss the playoffs? I do not. I'm not going to bet against the Dodgers. They've been the best regular season team in the last 10 years. So I'm not betting against them.
Even if the regular season ended right now, they'd
beat
still
miss
the playoffs by half a game.
Yeah. And then Joey's question, which is a good one. Do we think Oakland's going to win 50 games this year?
No, I don't. Because 50 games means 112 losses. And like I said, I think they're good enough, they're bad enough to challenge 119. I'm not saying the Mets 120, even though it's a 1 game difference. That Tigers team is the worst one I've ever seen in my lifetime, because it wasn't around the 1960s. I think they can challenge that. I see no reason they can't, except for their ballpark just naturally being a little conducive to pitching for them.
I don't think they win 50 games either. In fact, if I was a betting man, I would say I would follow the Oakland A's all season and just place $100 bets on them every game.
I've
$100
considered
bets
this.
against Oakland every game.
I've considered this as a betting strategy before when we have teams this bad that are like potentially historically bad. And
I would
agree.
take $100 and bet against them every single game.
Yeah, you're not going to make big money, but over time, if you do it every game, you're going to come away with more money than you bet. And to me, that's my type of gambling. So, Oakland, like if you told me right now the Oakland A's are going to lose 115 games, I would not bat an eye.
Yeah.
So to tell me, I think they'll lose more than 112? I do. They may not, and I don't think that's like a gotcha moment for me if they lose like 100 or 110, but they're really, really bad. There's no, the sky is the limit for how bad they can be. We go to the NL Central, because I think we've determined the NL West, everyone's kind of mediocre right now. We don't expect it to last. I think the Diamondbacks will stay where they are, but I think the Dodgers and Padres will heavily improve. And the Giants 8-13, they're not going to be very good either. They might challenge for 500, but it doesn't really matter whether they're 500 or whether they lose 88 games. So that's that division. And there's nothing really in like their patterns that I'd point to and be like, this is a damning, revelation. We know the Padres stars are struggling and or injured. We know the Dodgers stars are struggling and or injured. And we know the Diamondbacks have some young stars who are kind of unproven, and maybe they, put something together and get that team over the hump.
You know what the Padres remind me of? When you have this prospect that's like super hot and you just hear his name for so long, you get prospect fatigue.
Yes.
I'm kind of getting there with the Padres. Like on paper,
they're the Jared Kelenic of baseball.
Yeah. Well, he's having a hell of a season this year, but
I know, that's what I mean.
Like on paper, these guys should just be kicking everyone's ass. They have a collection of stars. They lose guys. They replace them with better guys. It's just, and they keep falling on their face. So I kind of have Padre fatigue,
Yeah. Yeah. We're waiting, I think you can say the same thing in Toronto, which they've, we'll get to them too. You could say the same thing in Seattle to a degree, and you could say the same thing in Chicago, and we're going to really get to the White Sox later because that's something that has to be covered. Let's go to the NL Central, which to me, and you'll never hear me say this again, so please mark it down. I think the NL Central, besides the AL East, is the most interesting division in baseball right now.
Why not?
And this is where we shout out, because I know Jason's been waiting forever, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah. And Henry, cynical me, like, here's my relationship with the Pirates. I love that they are a historic franchise. They are like if I didn't have baggage with the Tigers from eliminating the Yankees several times, I'd feel the same way about them, same way about the Reds, same way about the Cubs and Cardinals and Yankees. I like historical franchises. Yeah. And historically, the Pirates and Tigers once upon a time were unbelievably good, like the class of baseball for a really long time, like 80 years, 90 years. And then they fell on hard times. The Tigers are not nearly to the level the Pirates are at, but the Pirates fell on hard years this century, like pretty much this entire century. They've been terrible. This is nice for baseball. It's like if you're a hockey fan and you're like you prefer the original sixes to be good. Like that's how I feel about historical baseball teams. The Pirates are 16-7. It's the first time they've been over 500 in April since 2018 when they were 13-8, I think, to finish the year, something like that. They're 5 games over. Right now they're 9 games over. So even if they run into hard times here this final week, they probably are going to have their best start in at least 5 years. And I didn't go back further than that. I assume it'll be their best start this century or thereabouts.
They had a few years where they were high. They had the 3 years in a row where they were the wild card team.
Yes.
And I think 2 of those years they were like really hot. They were in contention for first place. It's nice.
Yeah, my first inkling with the Pirates was to be very cynical. Even though I want them to do well, I'm like, it's the Pirates. They don't have anyone noteworthy ever on that team. I know they've got some prospects I now like.
I have a soft spot for them. You know, I have family there.
Yeah.
I'm always in Pittsburgh. I love the town. I'm always at the Clemente Museum when I go there. You know, we've had Dwayne on the show before.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. I love the ballpark itself. I mean, I keep saying it's still probably the best ballpark in baseball. So I have a soft spot for it. So O'Neal Cruz is one of my favorite young players. You know, so I'm gonna have a soft spot for the Pirates.
Yeah, and I like Brian Hayes. That's like my O'Neal Cruz. I like Charlie Hayes too. Last out of the 1996 World Series, he caught it. So I always have a soft spot for the Hayes family in general.
And
but,
Andrew McCutchen's been hot.
He's a good story so far.
We kind of saw that signing and was like, okay, you know, a player that's kind of on his way out of the league. Why not go back to where it's still? But he's playing his ass off.
So that's where I start to go a little south. Like I wanted to poke holes in the Pirates because I'm like, this can't be, it's not sustainable. But I looked at a lot of things and they are like, there's a lot of things that are sustainable with the Pirates, I think. And that division's never a juggernaut. So, you know, they could have more wins than people think. Then I look at their lineup and I'm like, it's not that bad anymore. Like Brian Reynolds is playing to a level that I think he can play to. We lost Henry. We'll get him back, I'm sure. Brian Hayes is a young guy. He's only hitting 227, so that's not like what he's doing is not sustainable. He's actually been pretty shitty. Rodolfo Castro's kind of like one of those gritty young guys who plays everywhere that I like. He's on my dynasty team. Andrew McCutchen is a hot veteran right now. Do I expect him to be 271, 381, 888 all year? Probably not. I think he'll cool off, but you never know. He's a little rejuvenated over there in Pittsburgh. Then they've got O'Neal Cruz, Henry's guy, off to a nice start. So nothing they're doing offensively is not sustainable to me. No one's like doing great things on offense. They're scoring enough runs is how I define that team.
I mean, they have some young, exciting pitchers too, who they're doing what they should do.
So the pitching is where you really have to examine, because if I look at the Pirates right now, I'm trying to pull them up on my phone and multitask, which is never a good thing for a man to do. Are they not playing today? Is that what's tricking me? All right, here's the Pirates. So if I go into
them on the scoreboard, no.
Okay,
so a lot of games today.
We're gonna go to a future Pirates game here because it always gives me the stats, and I like that. All right, so Pittsburgh as a team, the one thing about their offense that I would point out is I don't think Jack Sawinski is going to hit 255, 383. And I bring up batting average on base percentage because to me, like he has 5 home runs. He's obviously, if he's not going to be on pace for like 40 this year, right. The reason I don't think he's going to be on pace for 40 is because he's not going to hit 255. So they kind of go hand in hand with me. Like McCutchen has 4 home runs. I don't think he's going to hit like 25 or 30 either. He's hitting 275, so we'll see. But anyway, so their offense is 12th in batting average, 12th in on base percentage, 8th in runs right now in MLB, 9th in home runs, 6th in slugging. I don't think any of that's crazy.
Like, I mean, they're 1, 2, 3, 4. They're 5th in OPS plus too.
Yeah. I think that could be sustainable for the Pirates. And if I'm not mistaken, they do have a couple more names who could be coming up through the system. So you have to be, the offense, I think, can play. I think it can hit a little bit. The pitching is 8th in ERA, 14 in batting average against, and 18 in walks in WHIP. So the pitching's not even that good. Like the ERA might be a little unsustainable. You look at those other 2 categories, they're probably not giving up a lot of home runs if I had to guess. But the Pirates, what they're doing in April, to me, I can't find a really, really good reason that they can't continue playing well. I don't know if they're going to play to the tune of, they're on pace to be like 50 games over 500 right now. They're not going to do that, but I don't see why they can't compete in the Central this year unless those guys fall completely off a cliff or they suffer major injuries.
Yeah, and Felipe made note, veteran support from Velasquez and Hill. Vince Velasquez, I thought was on his way out of the league or being in the bullpen, and he's pitched well. He's never reached his his potential, but he's pitched very well. He's pitching to a 3.7 ERA. 1.253 whip. I mean, he's doing well.
Yeah, they had a few relief pitchers last year when the Yankees played them that I thought were intriguing. They have a good closer in David Bednar. He's not a fluke by any means. The Pirates have components of things that can be good. Right now, they're red hot, 25 run differential. So
The
there's
rotation
not-
is a bunch of threes. It's like 5
and
threes.
it always will be. Like, I don't, maybe Garrett Cole for a few months back in the day, like they've never had an ace that I can ever remember, really. I like Jason Schmidt, was he there for a period
Sean
of time?
Chacon. I have an autographed Sean Chacon ball.
Like, yeah, so I mean, this is what the Pirates are when they're playing well, is they've got a bunch of pitchers who keep them in the game. They had that quality start run for a while. I don't know if it's still on. Roansy Contreras, I have always been a fan of.
Yeah.
I've known the kid since he was 16. I talked to him when he was a teenager as a Yankee prospect on Facebook. He's a good kid. He's got good stuff. And I always sort of followed his career in the minors, and what he's doing is something that he was expected to do. I was sad we gave him up in the trade. I don't think it was a bad trade, but I was sad we gave him up in a trade. So, I mean, the Pirates have elements. I'm not at all. This is not the same as me saying they're going to win the division. This is not me saying they're going to win 90 games. This isn't even me saying they're going to finish 500. But all I'm saying is that the baseball that they're playing right now, I don't think is a mirage. I think they're a team capable of winning 16 out of 23 games, and they did it. So
I disagree. I think it's a mirage. I don't think they're playing at a damn near 701 percentage clip. I just can't see
no,
it.
well, like I said, they're not going to be 50 games over 500. All I'm saying is if you can win 16 out of 23, their schedule has not been like the Rays in an extreme standpoint. And if you can win, if you're a team that can win 16 of 23 and have a plus 25 run differential, I think that you can play good baseball. That's all I'm saying.
I get it, but I still see the Cards and Milwaukee doing what they
Yes.
always do. Just
I
going
would
on a
agree
run,
with you. Gun
being
to my
boring,
head,
but winning games.
the Pirates probably still finish in fourth in that division. Gun to my head, but I'm making two different arguments. One is I'm saying they have the capacity to be good. The other one is I'm not saying that they are going to do anything different than what we.
You said they'll finish fourth. I think they'll finish third. They'll finish ahead of the Cubs. They'll finish ahead of the Cubs.
I mean, talent-wise, when I look at those two teams, I don't think it's that different. Like, I don't think the Cubs are much more talented. I think they have maybe a higher trajectory. But I don't think.
I think the opposite. I think I'd rather take the Pirates and their young team than the Cubs right now.
Well, let's look at the Cubs too, right? We're in the NL Central. So we talked on the Pirates. I think they could play good baseball this year, but that can be defined as 77 wins or 88 wins. Like, they're somewhere in there. Like, they could do that. Or they could fall off a cliff because they're the Pirates and lose 95 games. I have no idea. All I'm saying is I like the way they're playing right now. If you go to the Cubs, and this has been a point of contention for people with me, here's the 2023 Cubs. Now, their record right now is also impressive. They're 12-9. That's a nice start for the Cubs. They haven't played a shit schedule like they played. They've gone toe to toe.
Michael Fulmer isn't ass. They'll probably have more wins. Their bullpen is just trash.
Yes, it's still a bad bullpen, still a thin bullpen to me. Here's the Cubs metrics, which makes me happy for reasons I'll get into. They are second in MLB right now in batting average. They're hitting 280 as a team. And to put that in perspective, the Padres, who they're about to play, are hitting 216 as a team. Cubs are second, Padres are 28th. Their on-base percentage is second in baseball, 349. Runs, they're fourth in baseball, 121. Home runs, they're seventh in baseball, 28. Slugging, they're fourth in baseball, 448. You get to their pitching. Now, a lot of Cubs fans are like, hey, watch our pitching. Could be good. And to that, fine. Hayden Wesneski, by the way, has a 6 ERA. He's got Clark Schmidt's numbers, but no one's talking about that. He's barely in the rotation. Earned run average 9th, 367. Batting average against third, 214. Whip is fourth, 117. So you could make an argument the Cubs pitching is actually a little underrated right now because they are not giving up hits and they're not walking guys.
That bullpen is.
Let's let's look at the lineup though, because this is my favorite part. Right now, Nico Horner's hitting 355 with a 400 on base percentage. Nick Madrigal's hitting 293. Patrick Wisdom is hitting 256 and he has 9 home runs.
Does he have 9 home runs already?
Swanson, yeah, he has 9 home runs. Dansby Swanson's 299, 413. And he's got no home runs. He's hitting 299, 413. Ian Happ's hitting 307, 418.
Yeah, Ian Happ is killing it right now, except against lefties. He's as good as his numbers are, he's just fucking sucking against lefties.
Oh, yeah, but it gets better. Bellinger is hitting 300, 380. He's got 5 home runs. Seiza Suzuki is hitting 303 or is hitting 324, 439. And that's it. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hap maybe, can stay around there, but Horner, Madrigal, Wisdom for his power, not necessarily batting average, although you can make that argument too. Bellinger and Suzuki are all playing out of their mind right now on offense. All of them simultaneously. And the Cubs are 12-9. So tell me, Henry, what usually happens in baseball over a span of 162 games when you have more than half of your lineup having absolutely explosive months.
They balance out.
Yeah. So sorry,
but
Melvin,
they are hot right now, so we give them credit for it right now.
I'm going to give them the same credit I just gave the Pirates, except to a lesser extent because they haven't won 16 of 23.
Yeah.
They've won 12 of 21. If you can go 12-9, and let's revert back to what I said about the Cubs this year. I didn't say they're going to lose 90 to 95 games. I said that they are going to challenge 500 and miss the playoffs. So they're in that tier, like we discussed at the top of the hour. They might win 78 games, and I think that's a good season for the Cubs. And I think that's a continuous improvement.
I will always say this, like, when teams can't sustain, fuck the Yankees just gave up the lead. When teams can't sustain it, and the Cubs are not going to. It's not you play who's on your schedule. The Rays have gotten that heat, right? They played no one. You play who's on your schedule, you get as many wins as you can possibly get, and you start as hot as you can start. So that they're doing their part right now. Yeah. I just don't think it's going to continue.
No, the offense specifically is not going to continue. So like pitching, like Melvin points out, their rotation's second in baseball since last June, which is fine. I don't think that their pitching is necessarily bad. Like they don't have, like I said, I think their pitching actually might even get a little better based on how they're performing in the ERA in WHIP and batting average against. My point is that offense is going to fall off a cliff, and they're 12-9 with elite pitching right now.
Right.
So to me, and I'm only talking about if they regress 5 games, they're right where I thought they were. They're still 3 games out of first, and they're still in third place. So, and we'll get to the Brewers, who are really the story of that division to me right now. That's my point with the Cubs. They don't have to regress that much for them to be exactly what I expect. And their offense is probably going to regress a lot. So even if their pitching's good, that's about what I expect. I didn't love the names on their team. But you can't argue with their results at this point with their pitching staff. Their pitching staff has a lot of young guys who are coming into their own. They're performing. Marcus Stroman's not a young guy, is performing. So props to that aspect of the Cubs, except Hayden Wesneski, who sucks. So there you go. Brewers, though, Henry, different story. What do you think of the Brewers?
I don't know what to make of them. I mean, we expect them to be good.
Yep.
They're scoring runs. They have a plus 27 run differential. They are on fire on the road. They're doing what we expect them to do. They're a boring baseball team. I keep going back to that word because that's what they are. They're a boring baseball team, but they win. And like I said before, I think when it's said and done, they take that division.
So the Brewers are 15-7 right now, which, if you extrapolate that, is a 106 win pace. We can throw that out the window. The Brewers are not going to win 106 games. But you look at their team, I like the Brewers offense this year a little bit better than I usually like the Brewers offense, which is not at all. I don't like Luke Voigt's hitting 270, so let's throw that out the window right now. He does no home runs, so I mean we're not talking a very big sample size. He's played 10 games, but that's neither here nor there. Just had to point out that I hate Luke Voigt. Rowdy Tellez, 232, 7 home runs. I think that's sustainable. I mean, he is a 35 home run threat, so we're not too crazy there.
Yeah.
Willy Adames broke out last year. He's continuing. He's hitting 272, 371. That's not that crazy for what he did last season. Yelich, 250, 333. He's got 3 homers. So, I mean, I don't think he's doing anything we wouldn't expect. Winker's been hurt, 229, 321. You could argue maybe he's even a little bit better than that.
I'm looking at their offense. They're, I mean,
yeah,
like top 10 and everything. They're, they're not doing anything great, but they're doing things well.
Yeah, like maybe Contreras 311, 391 regresses a little bit, but I think their offense is legitimately okay this year. The pitching staff is the one thing I would have gone into this season and had a lot of confidence in. And I don't think Brandon Woodruff has a 0.79 ERA, so that's going to change. Something named Strzelecki has a 9.9 ERA, so that's going to change. Devin Williams, 7 innings, hasn't given up a run. He's going to be dominant regardless. Wade Miley, 196. So they do have some regression, but like Freddie Peralta's 397, Eddie Lauer's 430, Corbin Burns 455.
I mean, they're pitching well. They're only giving up 76 runs all season.
I think their pitching will balance out.
Yeah, they're pitching. They're not bad at all.
If you look at the Brewers rankings real quick,
top 5 in WHIP. Yeah,
they're 8th in batting average, 7th on base, 10th in runs, and then pitching 6 ERA, 5 batting average against 6 in walks. I mean, I think their pitching is what it is. The offense could be that. There's not a lot of regression in there to me unless there's injuries. So 10th in runs, if you told me, hey, the Brewers offense took a step forward, they've got a few guys now, fine. I don't think they're going to, like I said, they're not going to win 106 games, but if you tell me they're going to win 95 and win that division, I could buy it.
What jumps out at me is if you look at their FIP, their FIP, they're actually below league average at 443.
Yeah, like their best pitchers are the ones who are struggling.
Their ERA is at the team ERA is at 352. Their team FIP is at 443. That's a difference of almost 1. So that's significant.
Yeah, it is. So the Brewers, to me, let's put it this way. The Brewers are the most sustainable team in the NL Central to me, based on what they've done so far. And they're in a race with the Pirates right now. Cubs are not far behind. They're only 2.5 behind. It's a 3, and the Cardinals, we haven't even talked about. They're playing poorly. 9-13, -2 run differential. I'm not ready to give up on the Cardinals. Like I said at the top of the show, I'm not ready to bury anyone or elevate anyone to a guaranteed status. But the Cardinals are struggling. So
the Cardinals pitching is struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, through yesterday, they're top 5 in average, top 5 in hits, top 5 in on-base percentage, top 5 in OPS. It's not an offensive problem. Yeah. They have no pitching. Jack Flaherty is probably the only pitcher with any potential and ceiling there. And, he led spring in walks, and he's just doing the same thing this year. I have him in a league, and he fucking kills me every time I put him in a line.
Yeah. We have some of the analysis of the Cubs, which I agree with pretty much everything everyone's saying. I mean, Stroman, yes, he's pitching great. If you look at his numbers, they are comparable to aces. That's not a guy I'd want facing other aces. I don't think he's in that tier. He's like a Ching-Ming Wang back in the day, a guy who has ace-like numbers, but push comes to shove, that's not the guy.
Disrespect Ching-Ming Wang like that.
It's not the guy you're going to war with. I mean, that was the Yankees' problem from 2005 to 2007, is they didn't have that guy.
Ching-Ming Wang was everything you wanted in the picture. He got ground balls left and right. He wasn't a strikeout guy, but I'm a big Ching-Ming Wang fan until he got hurt.
I loved Wang, but I had to because he's our best pitcher. He's not in the
flirted with like 3 no-hitters.
He did flirt. He flirted with several. Yeah, one Red Sox one comes to mind. But
Aaron said they need a first baseman. I can trade.
Yes, Mancini has not performed. They do have Matt Mervis, big time prospect. I love him. He's on my dynasty team. I actually drafted him in like the 4th round of a expansion draft, like on a whim, and he turned out to be a great prospect. I think Aaron, if I'm not mistaken, he's been struggling to start the year. So I don't know. Once he gets hot, I'm sure he will be called up, but he hasn't exactly shown his prowess yet in AAA. So I don't think it'll happen until that happens. Melvin says by May. That could be true if he gets hot, but he has not. I don't think he has been hot. Minus that moonshot I posted of him like last week in Baseball Life.
I will trade DJ LeMahieu to the Cubs to play first base.
I would do that too. I don't think the Cubs would take on that money, but I would do that. So yeah, I mean the Cubs are fine. I think I'm healed a little bit going into their Bleacher Nation or whatever and reading about how stupid their fans are. That like kind of makes me feel happy. It's really bad.
So
they have really bad fans. Like the Yankees do too, but
we have bad fans, but they have stupid fans.
Theirs might be the worst out of all of the bad fans that I read about. So that brings me some joy. But I mean the Cubs are fine. The Cardinals are the one team I think they're going to really go up, and the Pirates are obviously going to go down by default, but I don't know how far. So that's the NL Central. NL East is the most boring, not because the teams aren't competitive, but because they're doing pretty much what we expect. The Nationals are bad. The Braves are in first. The Mets are right behind them. The only thing you can point to is that the Phillies started 11-12, although they weren't a juggernaut last year either. They got hot for the playoffs.
I was bigger on the Phillies this year than you were.
Yes, that's true. I felt like the Phillies would fall back into that like low to mid 80s wins, and Bryce Harper's hurt on top of that, which is not helping their offense at all. And they're 11-12. So the sky's not falling at 11-12. The Marlins are 12-10. So I think that's the one thing that might be a little bit of interest, but neither of those really move the needle for me as far as storylines in April. It's just kind of just in April to me. I'm waiting any day now, by the way, Henry, for the Marlins to have a sustainably good season. I've loved their prospects for so long.
I was rooting for them, especially the pitching prospects, but then Derek Jeter left and said they didn't follow the plan, and I'm kind of just not rooting for them anymore.
It very much turned me off when Jeter left because of why Jeter left, which I don't care what you think of Derek Jeter, the player or the owner. He was absolutely right. And that's just a testament to what a shit franchise the Marlins are, that you made a promise to a guy to be the face of your ownership, not the majority owner. And then you went back on that in the name of saving money. And you're now in that ballpark that's 11 years old, have never fielded a competitive team in it. And then you're pointing the finger at the fans. Like I hate that aspect of that team. It is so unfair to South Florida Marlins fans.
By the way, we are in NL East. I want to give the Mets props, man. The Mets being as good as they are with all the injuries and everything, they can be scary.
I still don't. I mean,
I know.
No, you're
I'm
right.
Higher on the Mets than you were.
Yeah, 14-9 is good. I think that's
14-9, given the circumstances, is good.
Yeah, for me, this is about what I expected from them. So I'm not I don't feel like it's appropriate to give props, but I'm also not criticizing them. Like they are kind of doing what I expect. They do have a lot of injuries. Carrasco's out. Verlander's been out. Who am I missing in everyone in that?
Carrasco being hurt might be helpful to them because he was sucked so bad.
Yeah. I actually April, even though the Mets are 14-9 and they're kind of they're doing fine with all these injuries. I'm actually a little more turned off by them because Scherzer legitimately just looks like he's done. He doesn't. I shouldn't say done. That's not fair. But Max Scherzer does not look like he's going to be the ace that's going to carry them the entire season.
No. He can't.
We expected injuries, but he's got a 3.72 ERA. That is not Max Scherzer.
And he's suspended.
Yeah, now that's probably good. I mean, he'll get a couple games to rest, a couple starts to rest. Verlander's coming back. I don't know what to expect of Verlander either. He hasn't even pitched yet.
Yeah.
Kind of their Carlos Rodon, and what is he going to be an ace? Is he going to be have a trouble adjusting to the new league? What's the deal? So we'll see. But the Mets, injuries are a testament to exactly why I wasn't high on them. They're very old in the worst possible places.
Yeah.
Front of their rotation, the role players of their lineup, because Alonso's having a great year. He's not old. Neither is Jeff McGinnis or McNeil.
McNeil.
Yeah.
I kind of like that name.
He should be McGinnis. When he plays like shit, he should be Jeff McGinnis because he's like playing drunk. That's how I feel about it. Lindor's obviously not old. So like the best players in their lineup aren't old, but they do have like the depth in their lineup is kind of old. So but mainly it's that Verlander and Scherzer put them from that we're an okay 80-something win team to we're a World Series contender. And I don't have any faith in those two or Carrasco. I do like Senga. He's shown some good stuff. He's got it's the same elbow issue every Japanese player who comes from Japan has. Tanaka had it for 8 years and nothing happened. But he has
8 years.
What's that?
That debate for 8 years. Should he get the Tommy John or not?
Yeah, 2013, he had the ligament or the stuff in his elbow, and it just never turned into anything. So I will believe it with Senga when I see it, but the rest of that rotation's hurt. They have a couple guys, I get it, who could fill in there, and they are, and that's part of the admiration that you're showing for them, that 14-9. They do have some depth that can fill in, but those guys are not going to win you in the playoffs. And if you're a Mets fan, you can no longer be all gung-ho about, hey, we're going to make the playoffs. Like that is no longer the
Is that how a Met fan sounds?
That's how they sound in my head when they say things like, oh my God, I'm just here for the ride. Like that.
That is not how Met. I live in New York. That is not how Met fans sound.
That's how they sound. That's a Mets fan filtered through a Florida resident.
That's fucked up.
You're not at that level anymore. Like this is the year, if you're a Mets fan, where you're like, we need to win the division and we need to make the NLCS.
Yeah.
Even as a Yankee fan, I'm not like we have to win the World Series. Like this isn't the Steinbrenner days. We don't have to win the World Series every year to have a good season. I think for the Yankees, you're probably waiting for them to get to the World Series at this point. But the Mets, you have to win a playoff series, not the play-in, an actual playoff series. You have to win the DS. And winning the division over the Braves would also make a statement. That's where it should be if you're a Mets fan. So, or else you're going to get the McGinnis voice.
Did that go out? I'm sorry, I'm looking at this Aaron Judge ball. Did it go out? No, it hit the top of the wall. It looked like it went out.
Oh man, whatever happened to my MLB TV? It's like 3 innings behind. For some reason on my MLB TV, if I go off of it on the laptop, it just stays in the exact inning it was in.
He hit an opposite shot to right field, and where they have those planters at, and it looked like it hit the planters. I don't know what it looks like a ground rule double, but.
Well, that's stupid. They're down 3-0, so the game's already over. I'm going to turn that off now. So, yeah. So, I mean, the NL East, I think, is pretty much playing the form. Braves, by the way, have lost 4 in a row. They got swept by the Astros, and their bullpen blew it every single game. I think their closer blew it every single game. Which reminds me, let's get some real scores again. We'll give you a quick scoring update. The Yankees down 3-0. I just alluded to that. So that game is probably over because they don't do more than that. Orioles up now on the Red Sox 5-4. Rangers still lead the Reds 6-8 or 6-4. That game's in the 8th. Rays now up 7-3 on the Astros. They're in the 7th, so they're looking good there. Blue Jays, of course, came back and lead 4-2 on the White Sox. Braves up 5-0 on the Marlins. Tigers up 3-2 on the Brewers, but Brewers have the bases loaded right now. Rockies finished the Guardians 6-0.
Yeah.
That Rangers game is still 1-0. So let's move to the AL. AL West, I know Eddie's excited. This is his division. I got to tell you, I was probably a little more excited to talk about the Angels like a week ago, but they've lost 6 out of 10. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Yankees. They're 11-11. They're 500. They have a +8 run differential. Did we ever get a Logan O'Hoppe update?
I think it was done for like 8 weeks, man, which sucks because I liked him. I like him.
I thought he was. I was really into Logan O'Hoppe.
Yeah, I was too. I was. It was unfortunate to see that happen.
4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months or weeks?
Shoulder injury. He's out 4 to 6
That's
months.
the season.
That's yeah, torn labrum. Man, yeah, that looks it.
sucks. I like
Those
him. He was a good
non-contact
looking kid.
injuries, non-contact injuries where you're crying, that's not gonna end well. I wrote this in Baseball Life, and somehow an Angels fan picked a fight with me over it, which I never understand how these things happen. I wrote, I like
Because
Nito.
some people don't get your style of writing. They don't know when you're
No.
being sarcastic. They don't get when you're being smug.
That's exactly it. I always tell people, like, the way that I write is just the same arm delivery, and I'll throw different speeds at you and you really can't decipher it.
You have to remember there's 8,500 people in the group.
If they're not like from the Northeast, they basically hate my guts. Is how
Our core guys get it. Our core guys get it. The other ones don't.
Yeah, the indoctrinated Midwestern fans who have been around for like 5 years, they get it because I've argued with them enough times where I'm like, I'm actually complimenting your team right now. You don't have to flip out. Right. But there's some people, including Angels fans, my words were that I like Nito and O'Hoppe a lot. I think they're really good young players. More so than I felt about Marsh and Adell, who I never felt were going to be major leaguers for the Angels, and they weren't, which is true. Adell's been a bust. And Brandon Marsh, bust. The argument that was picked is that Brandon Marsh is a major league player, which is factually true, and he is off to a good start in Philly, but that's not the Angels. So it's like you can't take credit for what the Phillies are doing.
No.
He never developed. He was a bust on the Angels. He was terrible on the Angels. So that was my only point. But the silver lining was that I really like Nito and O'Hoppe. I thought they looked like really good young players.
I was a big fan of O'Hoppe watching them.
Yeah, and it's a shame O'Hoppe had that. That's a very bad injury for a young kid, especially a catcher, to suffer. So that's a rough break for the Angels. And the other part of my post, which I think is what probably sent them into a spiral, is that I said the Angels always seem to be star-crossed, right? Like, just now they have prospects who might look good. One gets hurt for the season and they're up against it with Ohtani, because if they're not good by the trade deadline, Ohtani's probably.
Listen to me. You have to trade Ohtani, period. I don't care if you're good or not.
Well, if they're in a playoff mode,
trade Ohtani.
I agree with you.
Like, yes. Even if there's a like behind the scenes deal, like, yo, we're gonna re-sign you. You trade him, you get what you can get for him, and then you resign him if that's the route that they're going to go. They're not going to go that route. I don't think they're going to resign him. But you got to get something back for him. If you sit there and you get nothing in return, it's just stupid. We saw the Cubs do that last season with Contreras. You can't be that foolish.
I have to agree with you, because I said the same thing about Aaron Judge going into last season. Now the Yankees re-signed him, so it's all moot.
Right.
But you have to accept the premise the Angels are not going to win that battle, because I'd be shocked if they spend $900 million on two players, which is what it's going to take.
I don't see them resigning him.
I don't either. And
I think they got to trade his ass.
I think he does not want to be re-signed, because he's made it pretty clear at this point in his career he wants to play for a team who's going to compete. Which brings me back to my original point. If the Angels are not good this year,
let's be real. He wants to stay on the West Coast. We've talked about the time zone difference of him playing on the West Coast. At least that puts you on in the morning or in Japan. So that only really leaves the Dodgers.
I could
Seattle. Seattle is my dark horse, but it's really the Dodgers if you want to compete. Seattle should compete, but the Dodgers will compete.
If the Padres like him more than Soto, I could see that. The Mariners are a team I would not rule out. I said the Mariners.
I think the Mariners are the dark horse, but if he's really being honest with himself, Joey Gallo hit a home run. If he's being honest with himself and he wants to compete, it's really the Dodgers and the Padres, right? And even the Padres is a question mark when it comes to competing, because they haven't.
Oh, I disagree with the Mariners. I mean, if you put Ohtani with Julio over there in Seattle with the prospects that they have, I think that's a team that's in a good spot. And they have a rich culture of Asian players, obviously. I don't know if that matters or not for Ohtani. It might actually work against them. He doesn't want to be in Ichiro's shadow. But I think Seattle's a good landing spot. And that's only, Henry, if we accept the premise at this juncture in his career, he still wants to stay on the West Coast.
I
So
I
if he's
mean,
willing to go to Chicago or he's going to willing to go to New York, that
if
opens
he's
up
willing to
a
come
whole
up to other
different-
places, then then it's a money grab. I get it. I'm with it.
Yeah.
But with the Asian players, it's different. I mean, they're very honorable. They want fans in Japan to watch them play, which puts them on TV. I think a game here at 7 is what, 9 a.m. over there. I think we did the math one
I
time.
think yeah.
It's like
I think
9 a.m. So it's still early enough where they can watch them. If they're going to school or whatever. But
right now it's 10 a.m. there.
yeah, it's
So that's 12, 13 hours ahead.
yeah.
So 7 p.m. would be, well, 7 p.m. West Coast would be 10 hours ahead. So that would be 5 a.m. Am I doing that right?
No. I think when we did it one time, it was like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., a 7 p.m. game. But if you put them here on the East Coast,
yes.
if you put them on the East Coast, they're not watching that game.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that even matters to Ohtani. I think Ohtani might really.
I think it matters to him.
Maybe either way, no matter how you slice it.
You saw the WBC, everything mattered. He was dialed in,
But I think that being on any contender could give that feeling to him.
It's different. It's different. It's the honor of playing for your country. It was different baseball, and it was fun to see Ohtani play competitive and meaning baseball. Like, you saw what he put that team on his back. He was having a lot of fun. He was smiles. He did all the interviews. When you needed him to come through, he came through.
Yeah. I mean, look, case in point, if the Angels don't compete this year by the deadline, they're not in the driver's seat for Ohtani this year, or for next year. So that's where the Angels are at as a franchise. They absolutely have to be in a battle for that 6th seed by August 1st.
Mhm.
And they just lost one of their bright spots. It's not good. They're not in a good spot. And the Texas Rangers, who we haven't talked about yet, are off to a 14-7 start, which doesn't help the case. Seattle's 10-12. They're actually behind the Angels. That's not going to last. Seattle's a better team than LA, in my mind. Now the Texas Rangers are a team we should talk about, because they came into the season with a lot of hype, and so far they're absolutely backing it up. My criticisms of the Texas Rangers, though, were kind of long-term, like for the season, not for April. Like, it does not surprise me they're off to this type of start in April, and it has nothing to do with their schedule. The offense surprised me a little bit. They're 5th in batting average and they're 2nd in runs in MLB right now. Their pitching is also top 5 in almost everything. So their numbers back up their record. But my thing with the Texas Rangers was that rotation's not going to last for the season. And you just can't disprove that in April.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because they had Martin Perez, Jacob deGrom,
I'm just sorting something
now,
here.
so it's easier to me because I never remember these things off the top of my head.
I mean,
Evaldi, they've got Evaldi, deGrom, John Gray, Andrew Haney,
and Martin Perez.
And Martin Perez are their rotation. So 4 of those guys you can basically guarantee will go on the IL at some point, and maybe won't come back depending on how it goes. So
They've already had a scare with Jacob deGrom too.
Right. And those aren't equal value either. Like, if deGrom is out for the year or whatever the case may be, that's really hurtful for that team. Love Jonah Heim over there, another young catcher in the NL West or the AL West that I like a lot. They've got Josh Young over there as the big prospect who is now up. Lau is over there. He's been steady at first base. Simeon's the big guy. He's been performing early. Seager's hurt too, and they're 14-7. So again, this is an example of you should feel good if you're a Texas Rangers fan. It's a great start. You're feeling yourself a little. You're in first place. The Astros are 12-10 without Altuve, but you're ahead of them. My concern was, and they're a plus 60 run differential. My concern with the Texas Rangers is over a 150 game sample size, not
Texas,
21.
they're on like top 5 of major pitching stats, top 5 major hitting stats. They're there. They're doing their part.
Their April's absolutely warranted. I'm not trying to say that it's not. All I'm saying is that my concerns, if they're not going to reach the hype that they had in the preseason, and they had a lot of hype. Like when DeGrom went there, that was like, it's showtime. We're ready to compete because you've got young prospects coming up. DeGrom's coming there. A lot of people felt like Texas was better than their record last year. And you got the bullpen and some arms there. So it's showtime in Texas. You have huge money in Semien and Seager, which I criticized because I was like, why are you paying the big guys before your prospects come up, before you're anything? It's not the way I do business. But Texas had a great April.
That's the Padres model.
Yeah, I don't like that. To me, it's a tale as old as time. You develop a core of prospects who come up, demonstrate that they're cornerstone players. You supplement it with big free agent signings, and then you make some trades with some secondary prospects. And then you keep your prospects and keep a pipeline. If you can do all of those things, you're going to perennially compete and you're going to win a few titles. That's just, that's how I see it. Almost no teams do it or can pull it off. I recognize that, but that's how you do business. That's how you sustain a champion. Texas doing it the opposite way. Like you said, the Padres doing it the opposite way. We'll get to the White Sox in a second. But anyways, the NL West or AL West, I keep saying that. It's a little wacky right now, but the Astros are starting to come on a little bit. 7 of their last 10, 4-game winning streak, swept the Braves. Mariners have apparently just notorious slow starters. They were terrible last April too, before they got hot. Texas hot start. We'll see if they can stay healthy. Oakland is the worst team in baseball and will continue to do so. And the Angels are perfectly in purgatory.
Yeah.
Where they'll stay for eternity.
That sounds about right.
Right. So now on to the AL Central. And right off the bat, I mean, the Tigers and Royals just aren't it. I think we can say that. Royals are 5-17. I haven't seen any semblance except for Vinny Pasquantino of that franchise showing me that there's a core coming where I'd get excited yet. Am I forgetting anyone there? Like, is there someone that you look at with the Royals and you're like, yeah, this guy's a player?
No.
Yeah, me neither. So 5-17, it's not getting better anytime soon. Negative 51 run differential shows how bad they are. You also have the Detroit Tigers. I was pretty excited for them 2 years ago. I liked the way they were going, but they did one of my cardinal sins too, which is that they developed
paid a ball player that's clearly declining.
No, well, I mean, that is one of them. Yeah, you don't want to get into a contract like that. But that contract was terrible. But what they did was they developed their farm through pitching. I hate that. It never works. Like Oakland did it, didn't work. The Braves did it the best probably in the history of baseball and won 1 title out of it. The Twins did it, it didn't work. The Tigers are doing it now. It's not working. The Guardians do it. It's not, they're not going to win anytime soon. Every single team who leads with their pitchers, it never works from the farm set. The Mets, same thing in the 2015 era Mets I'm talking about, built their 5 aces, never won a title.
Let me ask you a question. Because people think I'm nuts. Do you think the Tigers cut bait with Javi Baez already?
Do you think
they need that kind of money?
What's left on it?
It was 6 years, 140. He's 1 season into it. This is the start of the 2nd season.
I don't think so, because isn't Miggy falling off the books?
He's bad.
Yeah, he is. I don't see it this early. For all I know, maybe he's a good role model in the clubhouse, or remember
he just got benched for fucking doing stupid shit.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know
if you're getting benched by your manager and you're a veteran, 6-7 year vet.
I think it's just too early for the big wigs to eat. I think they're going to say, hey, get something out of this guy. We'll trade him as soon as we can and get something.
So I think we've come to the conclusion that the only Javi Baez that's worth anything is the World Baseball Classic Javi Baez.
Yeah.
That's it. He has to have a Puerto Rico jersey on to be good. That's pretty much it.
That's his bread and butter. I don't think yet. I would say maybe next year is earliest I can think about it. I would put it on the table, but unless he's a clubhouse cancer and this bad, and I don't know that he's a clubhouse cancer just because he's getting benched by his manager.
I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it's just it's not. And also, here's the other thing: Detroit's not competing, so like, there's no one to take his place. You have to fill out roster anyway, so why not do it with money you've already invested?
If
But
you want to change the culture, that's a quick way to change it.
yeah, but what do you?
And if they eat that money, I'm looking at Brian Cashman like, what are you waiting for to DFA a few guys?
Well, that's a totally different scenario. If you want to change the culture with the Tigers, you can have them. You can have choir boys in that dugout. You're still going to lose 95 games, and that's not going to change much. The Tigers' problem is that Skubal, Manning, and Mize not only can't stay healthy, but they're also not very good, and that was their big three. So, and I don't see an offensive. Torkelson was their big, and Green are their big other prospects.
I'm going to go on record and say it would not shock me if they DFA'd him this year.
All right, well, that's a little bit of a hot take. I like it. I wouldn't rule it out entirely, but I'm going to go ahead and say I don't think that'll happen. Rangers just scored tied game, thank God. Anyway, the Tigers are bad, and I didn't really expect them to be better than bad, so they're not worth talking about. The Royals are not worth talking about. The Guardians are 11-11. We've seen this dance from them. They'll have like a 25-5 month at some point, and they'll make the playoffs. Like, that's what they do. Well, I shouldn't actually say they'll make the playoffs because they may not, but
they single you to death and they steal bases. That's what they do.
They make contact, they steal bases, they pitch well. They have a very deep, very fierce bullpen. They'll be fine. They're going to finish over 500. I'm very confident of that. Whether they make the playoffs, kind of a numbers game. You've got the Rays, Orioles, Yankees, Blue Jays. You can almost throw. Well, I'm not going to throw Boston into that because they fold like a tent at the first sign of not being able to make it. You got 3 teams in the East who can win a wild card. You've got the Twins who could win the division in the Central, and then you have 2 more teams in the West who can win a wild card. So just from a numbers game, the Guardians could not make the playoffs, but I still like their roster better than the Twins. The Twins showing me a little something by not rolling over against the zombie Yankees, so I'll give them that. They are absolutely they could potentially take the season series, so good for them.
I made mention to Melvin last week. He said, "Oh, the Twins own you," and I laughed. And then the Twins have owned us since. So,
yeah, look. The Twins are playing fine.
Let me read that stat. Let me read that stat that came up earlier. The Yankees are 140. That's a 714 win percentage versus the Minnesota Twins since 2020. This is MLB's best record by any team versus an opponent in its own league in that span. That is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other matchup in any other sport in the regular season or the postseason that's as lopsided as Yankees Twins. Period. Try and find it. You can. The Yankees own the Twins, and really until the Twins do something in the playoffs against them, like win 2 playoff games in a series, they're going to continue to own them. Like, you can't change that narrative with a season series win. So Yankees are playing like shit. They have 3 hits again. They're through 4 innings. I mean, we're going to get to them in a second, but the Twins.
Mako just brought up a good point. I forgot about that. Diamondbacks ate Mad Bum's contract.
Yeah. I think it's, if the Tigers were potentially going to compete and they had someone to replace him, because the Diamondbacks they've got Brandon Pfaadt sitting there in AAA who could easily come up and replace Bumgarner. I don't think he's up yet, and they replaced him anyway. So Bumgarner was a guy who had to perform, didn't. And the Diamondbacks, I think, want to challenge for a wild card. They're off to a good start. The Tigers are off to a terrible start. They don't have a guy to replace him, and they're going nowhere anytime soon. So that's the difference to me. But yes, I've made this case in baseball.
Yeah, they ate $35 million.
Yeah, I mean, I've made this case in baseball life. I think every team should do it when the situation's right, including the Yankees. They never do. Those are the reasons I would say the Tigers are not the same as the Diamondbacks, and they're not the same as other teams who do it, because they are not going anywhere and they have to fill out a roster.
Yeah.
The Twins can win the Central. I think I might have said that before the season started. We both picked the Guardians.
Did we pick the Guardians?
I think
I think I
we
picked the Twins.
Guardians. You might have. I'm pretty sure I picked the Guardians, and I said something along the lines of it would not surprise me if the Twins won the division. But I wasn't going to pick them, and I don't think
You did the Vince.
Huh?
You did
Yeah,
the
I
Vince.
hedged it. Absolutely. But because the AL Central is one of those divisions, like like any, you just don't know.
Yeah.
It's a total guess. So I go based on talent. I think the Guardians are the more talented. I think they have way better coaching, and they've got a better pitching staff. So that's still my pick. We're talking a 1-game difference in April.
We have an alert real quick.
Yeah.
Spencer Strider has a no-hitter through 7 innings.
Well, what it must be that time of the week.
It's not Oakland. It's not Oakland.
That kid is unbelievable. Like his contact, his contact rate just ridiculous for a starter. And he's actually doing the one thing that I said that he needed to do, which was go 7. The reason I said that I don't think he can ever throw no hitter is because he like rarely goes past 6 innings. He's gone 7 at 83 pitches. Apparently, either Matt goes saying that you jinxed it or you're going to jinx it. But well, he's not pitching, so I guess you didn't jinx it. But yeah, that's my one. So tonight he's got a shot. He's only had 83 pitches through 7, so he can go at least 8, if not 9. We'll see.
He'll get it.
Yeah. So yeah, the Twins, whatever. I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on them. Guardians either. That whole Central. The one team I want to talk about in the Central are the Chicago White Sox, who they're not a team I particularly follow from time to time because they're pretty boring.
Mhm.
They're like dead ball error amount of home runs. I was doing it last year. I was keeping track of Aaron Judge and Anthony Rizzo or whatever compared to the entire White Sox starting 9 in home runs, and they were neck and neck. The White Sox are not a fun team to watch play baseball. They're 7-15, so they're a really bad team. And that has to be the biggest disappointment of a rebuild maybe I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if that's hyperbole or not. In 2020, Henry, the White Sox were on top of the baseball world. They had a top farm system that had graduated. They had Eloy and Robert. We were excited about Robert, remember?
Oh, yeah.
I had to pronounce his name like a bunch of times. He's all over highlight films.
They had Giolito.
Yeah, they had Giolito. They traded for Kopech, who we really like. They have Dylan Cease, who actually has panned out.
Yep.
They had a deep bullpen. They had Tim Anderson.
Andrew Vaughn. It is a lot.
Andrew Vaughn was a top bet. This team in 2020, they made the playoffs in that short season, and I at least felt like, and I think you agreed with me, they were going to be a perennial contender every year after that. Like, that was their coming out party.
Remember, I was pissed that they fired Rick Renteria. And every Chicago fan just said, no, he's a bad man. We brought Tony La Russa. Yeah, how the fuck did that pan out?
Yeah, I liked La Russa as a stopgap, same way I like Showalter in New York. But
I did not like it. Renteria brought those young kids there. You let him finish that job.
Yeah, well, I didn't think Renteria should be fired, but in a vacuum, they hired La Russa. I was like, all right, for 1 year, this is fine. Well, he went into a second year, and that was when there was a disaster. Because 2021, the White Sox were fine. 2022 was an absolute disaster. Clubhouse cancer everywhere. That's a terrible pun to make. White Sox. That was totally unintentional.
Yeah, that was bad. That was really
toxicity everywhere in the Chicago clubhouse. And now this year is a continuation of that. But the problem is that not any of their bats are panning out. Eloy can't stay healthy. Robert's hitting like 220. Andrew Vaughn hasn't been the guy we thought. Moncada took several steps. He's not even a guy you'd consider a possible all-star caliber player anymore.
No, they're bad. They're just really, really bad.
They've been gutted. I've never seen any. 2020, they were rising. 2021, we were like, all right, I could see a little bit of a step back, but they're still good. And then they fell off a mountain. That entire front office needs to be fired.
They're below league average in batting average, on base percentage, slugging, OPS, OPS plus, and total bases.
It's a terrible product. And I know Matt Bushnell, token White Sox fan, and the mayor, Ricky, Velasquez, big White Sox fans. I talk to them fairly often. I talked to them today about this. They hold a lot of resentment, obviously, for La Russa, which I get. They hold a lot of resentment for their owner, Reinsdorf, who I get that too, because they feel like you never went and got a Machado, which they were hot for and signed like all of his cousins and priests and friends and still didn't land him, and offered like half of the contract he got. They felt like in that time frame, in that 2019 to 2021 time frame, you needed to add a superstar kind of veteran presence in the clubhouse, which is something that I agree with. As your kids are coming up and establishing they're about to do something, they didn't do that. But this goes way, way beyond that to me. This is a very failed rebuild and concerning franchise at this point. And they've got a little bit of Yankee syndrome going on where Robert and Eloy take turns being hurt all the time.
It's sometimes you want to laugh, but it's sad because they had so much potential. They had, like you said, all these guys lined up. They came at the same time. We saw it. We were waiting for it, and then it just kept going backward and backward and backward. And now they're a floundering franchise.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really, really bad. And it's not going to turn around. I mean, now they don't have a good farm system, and this is the major league product. So the White Sox are going to be bad for a while. I think they need to fire their front office and hire a new one and then rebuild. I really believe that. I know that they could get some good prospects back for that pitching staff for a couple of those guys. I think you need to blow the entire thing up.
They should hire Aaron Boone.
I would love that. He'd be perfect there.
The MLB right before the season, MLB put out the farm system rankings. Chicago White Sox came in at 26.
Yeah, like I said, they've got nothing coming up in reserves. And that to me, when you're like, if I felt like next year, like if the White Sox, if I felt like Eloy and Robert, right, they got hurt this year and they don't have a history of it. Maybe Moncada's got a lingering oblique or something, and they're in a bad luck year. Like I felt that way about the Braves last year, right? Like the Braves, or I'm sorry, 2 years. No, what am I saying? The Braves were a team who kind of had like lingering injuries last year. They ended up getting red hot, but there's been other teams where it's like, yeah, they're lingering and it's just a bad year and you come back next year. The White Sox are not that team.
No.
The White Sox are very like their best players are consistently and constantly injured. They don't have any farm reserves coming up. Their starting pitching is good, but not deep. So what's the point? They don't spend money on free agency, and that bullpen is like, it's always usually pretty good, but they're a bad team. So you got to start over at that point. Devils just scored, which is why I lost my train of thought. It's 2-1 Devils in that game.
What period are they in?
They're in the third. There's only like 11 minutes left, so that's a big goal. Trying to tie that series up.
Yeah.
I literally cannot turn over to the Yankees fast enough to see them bat because their innings are over so quickly. Like every time I look, the Twins are batting because the Yankees innings are like 3 minutes because it's either 1, 2, 3, or they hit into a double play immediately.
It's so bad.
Yeah. Rays up 8-3 on the Astros now, so they are running away with that one. The Reds came back to tie the Rangers, so just give them a compliment. They give up 2 in the 8th. And then we've got a phone that is malfunctioning.
I got you. Hold on.
So that's the Central. Here we go.
Atlanta's still throwing a no-hitter, 8-0. Detroit winning 4-2. West Coast games.
Tigers up 4-2 on the Brewers now. Blue Jays up 5-2 on the White Sox. So
Texas and Cincinnati is on the bottom of the 9th, tied up at 6.
And the Orioles beat the Red Sox. So minus the game that was 2 divisional teams, pretty much the entire AL East will win. Yankees will lose. And you're gonna this is the dance, and this is a perfect segue into AL East, where every team's exciting. Every team in the AL East, even with the Red Sox loss today, is 500 or better. They have the team with the best record in baseball with the Rays. They're coming off a season where they had 2 wild card teams. So the AL East is where it's at. Indisputably, in my mind, is the best division in baseball. deepest and best. The only thing you can debate is whether they're going to win the pennant, any of those 5 teams. Before the season started, Henry, our logic for the Yankees winning the division was not that we were particularly enamored with their roster or their winter.
Because
It's that we didn't see it's that we didn't see anything from the other 4 teams that demonstrated they had made that leap over the Yankees. Let's start there. Do you and right now, you know, we know what the Rays are doing. We'll talk about them, but do you feel any differently now than you did a month ago about whether or not the Yankees are still going to win the division?
I mean, I don't long term, but you have to acknowledge the start Tampa Bay's had. You can't ignore it, and you can't keep saying it's the schedule. At the end of the day, the schedule that's in front of you is the schedule you play, and your job is to win as many games as possible, and they've done that better than anyone. So with that said, they're the best team in baseball right now. It's not just they hit the most home runs, they have the highest batting average, they have the most on base percent. They're winning games in various ways. So right now they're playing the best baseball. I still don't think that they are the best team in the division, and I don't see them sustaining that long term. But like I said, you have to give them credit. They're doing it right now, and they're doing it in various ways. They're winning games in so many different ways. So you got to tip your hat to what Tampa Bay is doing right now.
Which brings me to the other controversy I was involved in for a while, which was the Tampa Bay Rays, which again was a point that I thought was made fairly innocently that struck a lot of people's nerves. Here's how I feel about the Tampa Bay Rays. They're 19-3. They started 13-0, which is when I started to kind of form my opinion.
And I think at that point they played 3 or 4 teams that were like
they played
expected to be the worst teams in baseball. It was like it was Washington, it was Oakland.
Yeah. I think it would be beneficial if we pull up the Tampa Bay Rays schedule, which I'll do right now. Because this is a storyline with the Rays, whether you think it's for the negative or not. It's just a factor, which was what my point.
I got it. It was.
Yeah, I have it here.
The Tigers. It's bad.
If you handpicked up until April 13th, if you handpicked a schedule in MLB, it could not have been worse than the one that the Rays played in terms of the competition of teams. Tigers, who we established, are 7-13. Nationals, who are 7-14. The A's, who are 4-18. And the Red Sox. Now, the Red Sox, they swept in 4 games. They're a 500 team now, but they weren't then. They kind of got hot, and now they're like mediocre again.
Right.
The Red Sox were easily the best of those 4, and they still are probably going to come in last place, and they still also might lose 90 games. Like that, you know, I don't think they will. I actually think the Red Sox can challenge for 500 all year.
Time out. But the jinx is complete. Spencer Strider's no-hit bid is over.
I think I get more joy out of no-hitters being broken up at this point than I do actual no-hitters, just because I don't like that they happen so often. So
evil motherfucker.
Remain special. So I'm happy about that. Congratulations, Spencer. You did not pitch a no-hitter.
Considering I have him on in our Yahoo League, I was hoping he got it.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I've never had a starting pitcher in fantasy throw a no-hitter in 20 years of Major League Baseball, in 20 years of fantasy baseball, which is at this point more like a bizarre stat, I think, than anything else. Anyway, so the Rays played the worst, and again, like you said, this is at no fault of their own. Like, I'm not criticizing the franchise over this, but it is a fact. They played about the worst schedule you possibly could have played the first 13 games of the season. Now, since then, they're 6-3, which is still not bad, and they are beating the shit out of the Astros today, so they're going to improve to 20-3, so they're going to be 7-3. They have an 88 run differential in April, which is otherworldly. They're 13-0 at home, which is insane. My point with the Rays was not to say winning 13 games, you should discount it. I think any team who you might see one other team the entire year win a 13-game winning streak, regardless of competition.
Yeah.
My point's none of that. My only point with the Rays when they started 13-0, and even now at 20-3, is that it is not an indication of anything conclusive, which is the same point I made about the Pirates playing well. It's not an indication of anything conclusive. And the only reason I feel that way is sample size, and in the Rays case, competition. In the Pirates case, some of their metrics. But the Rays have played bad teams and they've killed them, and they deserve the utmost credit because, like you said, they can't control who they're playing. But I don't think this guarantee. They're 4.5 up on the Orioles in second. They're 6 up on the Yankees, soon to be 7. They're 6 up on the Blue Jays. Those are not runaway numbers, even with that start. And I don't think the Rays are going to win 140 games or whatever the pace they're on right now.
I look, I'm sticking to my prediction that they won't even make the playoffs.
So this is where it gets interesting with the East, and I don't think we can go in depth about all 5 teams, but we can mention them kind of collectively. Orioles are 14-7, which, if you asked me, I would have said is actually
15-7.
Well, now they're 15-7, right? That is impressive to me. And their schedule, they started the season losing back-to-back to the Red Sox. They then won 2 out of 3 against Texas, who I don't think was playing quite the way they are yet, but that's still good. Lost 2 of 3 to the Yankees before Stanton went down. Won 3 of 4 against Oakland, nothing to write home about there. 2 of 3 against the White Sox, and then 2 against the Nationals, and now swept the Tigers, and then 1 against the Red Sox. So actually, I'm taking it back. That is just as bad as the Rays with slightly worse record, 14-7. But again, props to them. Like, this is what good teams should do, and this proves that Baltimore is not a fluke from last year and that they can beat bad teams. They've won 6 in a row, plus 18 run differential, which they're never a team that blows teams out a lot. I don't think they're going to come in second place. I mean, I picked Baltimore and Boston to kind of flirt with 500, and I still believe that. So let's start there, and you can join me. Do you feel any differently about Baltimore at 14-7?
I think it's a nice story. I mean, we both said they have some nice young talent. How much my dong rises for Adley Rushman. I love him.
You love him more than I love him, and I don't dislike him.
Love him very much. I think by the end of the season, he's probably going to be the best catcher in baseball. Kid is nasty, and he's a Yankee killer already. It's a nice story. I don't see it sustainable for the rest of the season, but it could be that kind of stepping stone, like, a nice competitive season for these young guys. And, maybe next year you get a veteran or 2, and you kind of try to start to compete, because this is a tough division. This is going to be a tough division for the next, 5-10 years. So it's going to be fun with them getting better. I see Boston as being the worst team in the division at the end of the year, maybe. I think Boston has a bigger hill to climb than anyone in that division going forward.
That was the one spot I think we differed in the AL East standings. So I had Boston in 4th, I had Baltimore in last. You had Baltimore in 4th and Boston in last. And we both decided that it could go either way. My only point with Baltimore, and their general manager indirectly agrees with me, is that they're going to regress. Like, their numbers last year were not sustainable to how good they were. Now they, I think, could be improved. They've got Gunnar up. They've got, a couple of prospects coming up now. I do like their players. Like, I don't think that they were a total fluke. I just think they're going to have one of those sidestep seasons where they're not going to graduate to 90-something wins, especially when you factor in the division that they're in.
Right.
So Baltimore is beating bad teams, which they should do. That's what 500 teams do. And I think they're probably on the track that I think they're going to go on. They're just getting a lot of wins up front because they're playing a lot of bad teams, which we can say about several different teams right now. Jason pointing out the Pirates really have not had an impressive schedule either. The Red Sox are their best team that they've faced. And most of them.
I mentioned their schedule when we talked about them.
Yeah. So all of these teams, I mean, this is what April baseball is. You can't control your schedule, but your schedule is a very small sample size at this point. So Baltimore, I don't think you can go into too much depth about. Toronto is a really hard franchise for me in general because they never seem to have everything working. Like, if you look at Toronto's pitching staff, I don't think it's bad. Like, they have a good rotation, I think. And their bullpen isn't, like, they've got a bunch of guys who can play well. Their offense should be very, very good.
They're also becoming very annoying. They're very mouthy now.
Well, I have talked about that since 2021.
Very mouthy. They talk a lot of shit.
Yeah, they're a very hateable and immature team.
They are.
And Kevin Kiermaier might be a type of guy who can help with stuff like that. I mean, it's not going to change Vlad. Like Kiermaier's not going to get in Vlad's face, but he's a little more likable. That's what I hate about the Blue Jays, and I like to. I mean, I say this, and as a Yankee fan, it's going to fall on deaf ears, but you can't act like that. Like they're not a team that's mature enough to make a deep playoff run. They've proven nothing.
You know
Like
what
when
it
you
is?
think
Their two biggest stars are very, very young and very, very immature.
yes, extremely immature. Springer is kind of a shithead, so I don't think he changed anything.
No, Manoah's becoming an asshole, and Vlad, you know, his game. I spoke about Vlad glowingly. I thought he should have won the MVP over Tani that year, but Vlad is becoming obnoxious too. I mean, for him to just randomly come on and say, "I'll never play for the Yankees," okay, you just want to
Yeah.
take out one of the biggest bidders for you when you become a free agent. Knock yourself out, asshole. You know, it's just,
Yeah.
it's
and
the
his dad
stupid
said the
thing.
same thing. Bichette is an immature player as well as I think immature. Like he
He
goes
is, but
through.
he is a hell of a. He's Ichiro-esque, dare I say.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's very talented, but my problem with Bichette is that he's got a little bit of Glaber in him, and that he's prone to disappearing for too long for a guy with that kind of talent.
And his hair, he needs a haircut.
He looks terrible. Yeah, I don't, you say what you want about facial hair or whatever. He looks like an idiot. You just can't convince me otherwise.
He'd fit in with the Red Sox, you know, back in the days.
Yeah, right. I mean, he look stupid at a
Like
certain
a
point.
poor man Johnny Damon. That's what he looks like. A poor man's Johnny Damon on the Red Sox.
He looks like a doll, is what he looks like. And it doesn't help that his features are not particular. Like he's not like this Greek god either. Like he's kind of a small guy and he looks stupid. But anyway, yeah, I mean the Blue Jays are immature to me, and they've proven nothing. Like they've been embarrassed pretty much in both of their postseason appearances, or three of them at this point, two of them because they didn't make it in 2021. So like that, I look at they're in the trajectory the White Sox run, right? 2020 they arrive, they make the playoffs, they really sweep them. 2021 they missed the playoffs by a game, and they were all hyped up to possibly win the division that year. They didn't. Yankees and Red Sox make the playoffs. 2022 they get embarrassed out of the postseason. So they've done nothing with that core, and it's a very, very talented roster. So I don't know what to make of the Jays. They're 13-9. Gun to my head right now, I like the position they're in more than the Yankees, even though they have a -4 run differential. The Yankees are +21. And I only say that because now we can get to the Yankees. I'm done with it. I'm just I'm always gonna be a Yankee fan, obviously, and I'll follow the team, but I'm done with everything this franchise is about right now. It's very poorly run. And you, surprisingly to me, have come to my side on Brian Cashman. I know you like Brian more than
I do like Brian Cashman, but you can't ignore things. I mean, I'm not gonna always defend my position just because it's my position, right? If things are what they are, I mean, you didn't get the lefty bat that we needed. In fact, we lost one. You didn't get the starting pitcher. The one you did get is hurt. Yeah, we don't know. Like you said before, we don't know what Rodon is. We don't know what he is. We don't know what to expect. Severino in a walk year, you almost can't sign him. I don't care what he does. There's just so many holes in this. They refuse to eat the contracts of Hicks and IKF. I'm still on the fence with Donaldson. I think Donaldson can still have a bounce back season. I said that at the beginning of the year before he got hurt, of course. But if you got to eat it, eat the fucking money. Eat the money, especially when you have guys that can give you the same or better production for a hell of a lot cheaper.
The Yankees at this point, I said this, I think on the last show, you can only take their floor. You cannot play to their ceiling anymore because they're never going to reach it. Right. 2021, until after that, they had a 13-game winning streak that year. Besides that 13-game winning streak in August, 2021 was an embarrassing season for the Yankees, given where they were after 2020, which 2020 was embarrassing in its own self.
I would say last year was an embarrassment to end the way you ended.
Yes. Well, so I'm getting to that. 2020 should have been, let's back it up again. 2019, the Yankees win 103 games. They finally win the AL East. They lose to the Astros in 6 games in the ALCS. If you're a Yankee fan in 2019, you're saying, we have an offense that can win a World Series. We need to get an ace. They go out in 2020 and they get Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole pitches pretty well in 2020, short season, but he pitches pretty well. the Yankees offense all of a sudden becomes this one-dimensional thing. Luke Voigt starts, has all the home runs, but he is only doing that. Stanton and Judge are still getting hurt. You see a little bit of cracks in the armor with a team that should have been the World Series favorite that year. And instead, they lose in the first round to the Rays. Already embarrassing. I would have fired Aaron Boone over it. He had a terrible, terrible series that year. All around against Tampa. I mean, he was as much to blame as any of the players for losing that series to the Rays, who had no business winning it. Of course, the Rays then go on to the World Series, lose that. 2021, you take another step back. So you go from World Series contender to what should be World Series favorite to now 2021, where the final day of the next to last day of the season, they qualify for the playoffs, which is embarrassing. They had an awful offense, a bottom 10 offense that year for a team with a payroll at the time in the mid 250s. And they had solved the pitching problem by hiring Matt Blake in 2020. 2021, he truly comes into his own. The Yankees have very good pitching in 2021. They have a terrible offense, which is inexcusable. They get Rizzo. Andrew Velasquez has a little bit of magic. They salvage it. They make the playoffs, and they lose to their arch rival again in the Boston Red Sox, making 3 out of 4 years they lose to a division rival with the Astros in between. Brings us to 2022. At this point, Boone should have definitely been fired after 2021. That was inexcusable. Instead, they extend him. 2022 comes, and the Yankees are off to a historic start. It looks like everyone's job is completely safe. And instead, they play historically terrible in August. And then they get swept out of the ALCS. And they extend Brian Cashman. So, this is where I'm now coming down, is that the Yankees... It's not that they have injuries. It's not that they have a bad manager. It's not that they have a GM who, since 2022 trade deadline, Andrew Benintendi, Lou Trevino, Scott Effross, Harrison Bader right now, the signing of Carlos Rodon.
Benintendi.
Yes, every single move Cashman has made since the 2022 deadline in the winter and in the deadline has gotten 0 results, not bad results, 0 results. And he's still there. It's all of those things. It's the culmination of all of those things. They've hired a new medical staff and these guys all get hurt. Why? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I shouldn't have to be the one to provide an answer. The Yankees should be held accountable for this, and they're not. They just keep calling it bad luck over and over again. 2 medical staffs. They've got aging players. They have a $290 million payroll now, and their offense is terrible. I mean, look at the game today. They're awful. They're an awful offense. They have 3 hits against the Twins. And it's the 3rd time this week. So the offense is really, really bad. It's not enjoyable baseball.
No,
they have not.
It's not a fun team to watch right now.
It's not fun. And they haven't adjusted their organizational philosophy towards offense the entire time Cashman and Boone have been here. The entire time.
So you remember how we spoke about before when the team kind of they start to mail it in and they kind of start to play just shit baseball around. That's what they've been playing this season. Even though they have 13 wins, I think.
Yeah, they're
13 and 9
after today.
They're about to be 13 and 10. So you watch them play. It's lifeless baseball.
Yeah.
There's no energy. You have the 2 kids, which is great, but there's no energy there. These guys are kind of just trucking along. It's almost like you have too many veterans who don't have, they're just there to get a check. And that starts with the manager. I'm sorry.
It does.
You need a new voice. You need a new voice. Girardi's still out there. I'm still a Girardi guy. I'm going to always be a Girardi guy. Say what you want about him being a little too tough on these guys, but when he left, all the problems that he suppressed showed. Gary Sanchez, Luis Severino, all these guys that kind of had Glaber, all these guys that kind of had attitude problems, that complained that he was a little too tough. Those guys showed their ass, and all of them except Glaber are no longer on the team or suck.
Yeah.
Shit, is Gary even in the league anymore? Did anybody pick him up?
Who?
Gary.
No. I think he signed him. Did he sign a minor league deal? I
Didn't
think
he
he
sign
signed
a
a
deal
minor
with
league.
like overseas or say either
Oh
way
yeah,
he's out
maybe
of
he
the
went
league.
to, yeah, he might have gone to one of those leagues.
So you say what you want about Girardi, but he wasn't wrong. He knew who to keep the pressure on and who to keep, everything on.
There's
And he,
no accountability whatsoever in the entire franchise. And not only is there no accountability, but it's opposite.
Yeah.
Like Peraza, they treat like he's a pariah. He's your number 2 prospect. They don't even play him every day. Volpe
Well,
started the season 9th and was ice
they,
cold. They move him up to lead off, and he's getting
I
high.
know we disagree with that, but they kind of pigeonholed themselves into that decision, right? You needed to trade Glaber, and you needed to trade Glaber because you needed to put Volpe at second base because Peraza is a defensive shortstop, and he's a far better defender than Volpe. Volpe has been holding his own to his credit, but
Yeah.
he's not a better defender than Peraza.
No, he's not. That should have been a
So
decision that
now
was
you
made.
have
and
Peraza
clarified.
playing a position not as well as his natural position. He's playing all over the place. Now they're playing him at third base. So when you start to fuck with people like that, it doesn't work.
Meanwhile, Cabrera, who I get it, he's very versatile. He's got energy. I get it, but he is by far the lesser of the 3 prospects and plays more than Peraza does, which is ludicrous to me. And Peraza was going to get demoted if Donaldson came back healthy on top of it.
Correct.
Which is, it's mind numbing to me. I mean, they treat their own prospects like shit and also don't sign guys because they have these prospects.
I just say that Volpe has a throwing error.
Yeah, I just, and then I mean, let's look at the Yankees payroll right now. The Yankees payroll breakdown right now, we'll go through real quick. This will be a great way to end the show, is exploring what Brian Cashman's invested with Hal Steinbrenner's money, that Hal Steinbrenner just gave him an extension. And he's part of the problem too. He's not off the list.
No, he's not. Say what you want about his dad being a knee jerk, but his dad didn't have a problem making the difficult decisions, and it seems that Hal does.
Yeah, Devils just won 3-1, by the way.
Yeesh.
Aaron Judge, 9 years, 360 million. Fine. You know what? He had to make that deal.
Yeah.
He could have made it for 100 million less the year before, and he didn't close the deal. Steinbrenner had to because he refused to go to the number Judge wanted. So that's a wash to me. Cashman wasn't even involved. It's going to age terribly, I'm sure. And if Judge is a 260 hitter that he is right now, it's going to age really terribly. Garrett Cole so far has worked out. I'll give him that. I mean, he's not the guy who should be making 36 million a year, but I don't think you can really ask for that when you sign starters to huge money. Garrett Cole is the ace of the Yankees. He's pitching like one right now, and he's been healthy since he got here, except for like a month in 2021. So fine.
I'm gonna drink some water so I don't start on Garrett Cole.
Giancarlo Stanton's been an awful trade. It looked good at the time, though, so I'll give it to him. Like, we couldn't have seen this coming from his health.
It's been an awful trade because of the health.
Yeah, the one thing I would say that I thought was a good criticism at the time was he was too much like Aaron Judge. But I think they wanted that from a marketing standpoint. So fine. Those are the 3 big contracts. I'm not going to criticize any of them because it's too much hindsight 2020 for me. We get to Carlos Rodon. He hasn't pitched yet, making 22 million this year.
And I think we both hated that they had to go to 6 years there.
Yeah, we did. I was fine with 5. I think that's just the going rate you have to pay, and they needed a guy to complement Cole, and a lefty who throws like Rodon does it was kind of unflappable, was the perfect option. He's done nothing.
Oh, come on, bro.
Josh Donaldson, 22 million. He's been bad. He has been bad, and to make it worse, Boone bats him 5th, which makes it worse.
Cabrera just looked like Hicks and had a fucking error. I think the lights got in his way. He just dropped it.
How is that game not like 100-0 based on everything that's happening? Well,
The lights had to get in his way. He just completely dropped the ball. Like, he didn't even glove it.
Rizzo's a short-term deal. Again, I won't criticize it, but my problem with Rizzo is, like you mentioned earlier, we need a second one. And they don't have that. The Yankees need badly a lefty cleanup hitter to split Judge and Stanton, have Stanton bat 5th, which is where he belongs, have Judge bat 3rd, which is where he belongs, Volpe at leadoff, and your number 2 guy can be Rizzo for all I care. At least with Volpe leadoff, you have speed at the top of the lineup. You can afford to have a guy like Rizzo who gets on base and has some pop, and then you have Judge after that to protect Rizzo, so he'll probably
It's funny
benefit.
that the 2 guys that they need, they didn't go after when they were free agents, which is Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber.
Right. Those two would have been perfect. DJ LeMahieu, now he was a great signing, but he's been an awful extension.
Yeah.
He can't stay healthy. And right now he's struggling. So that's 90 million. Severino, an awful extension. He hasn't been healthy any of the 4 years he's been extended. Now he's in a walk year, 4 years, 40 million there. Or
Don't
I think
forget
it's
Aaron.
actually
Don't forget Aaron Hicks.
Aaron Hicks we're on now. Awful extension. He's been terrible since he got re-signed in 2019 and fell off the earth. He's been bad ever since 10 million. Just those three guys alone is 41 million. We are paying a year for absolutely nothing. Gleyber Torres making 10 million this year, playing a position that is played by three other guys on the roster. I don't know why he's here.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're expecting either, because he's the same guy every year. He's a guy who bats 300 in April, and everyone's like, oh my God, he figured it out. He's finally hitting opposite field. He's playing good defense. And then like a hangnail happens, or someone says something rude in the media or whatever. He has a bad day sleeping, and all of a sudden he's a 250 hitter again.
Yeah.
And he's pull happy, and he's a head case. That's just what he is. And he disappears for 6 weeks at a time. Frankie Montas, 7.5 million. Absolute waste. He won't pitch this year.
Awful trade.
IKF, they had a chance to non-tender, and instead they picked him up for 6 million a year, and he's a detriment to the team, no matter what position he's playing. And I'm pretty sure he's the guy last year who wanted out, and they brought him back anyway. Add Montas and IKF, it's another 13.5 on top of what we already said, which is 41. So now we are at 55 million, a total waste from Brian Cashman. Tommy Canley has not pitched yet. That's another 6 million because he's hurt.
Neither has Lou Trevino.
61 million. Harrison Bader, final year of his contract, 5.2, 66 million. Lou Trevino, probably out now for multiple months with his injury. So we are now at 70 million. Wandy Peralta, fine. He's only making 3.3. Clay Holmes, fine, although he shouldn't be a closer. Cortez, good. So, I mean, after that, it starts to trail off with meaningless, money.
Yeah, everyone else is 1 year deals.
Right. $70 million a year this year we are paying right now for absolutely no results. And that doesn't include Giancarlo Stanton. So, I'm sorry, that doesn't include Josh Donaldson either. So we're really paying about 125 million of 290 million to get nothing, and Brian Cashman got extended for that.
Yeah,
that's why the Yankees are.
Like I said, I think it's time for a new voice, a new leader from top to bottom, from minor league system to scouting to everything.
All of this brings back to the original point, which is that I have no faith the Yankees are going to win the division. I thought that winning it back-to-back years is tough to begin with. But again, my rationale was that I didn't really see anything else from anyone else that convinced me otherwise. I think the Rays have shown they're good enough to beat bad teams. They're good enough to compete with good teams. And that might be good enough to win this division this year, because everyone's going to beat up on each other, even with a shortened schedule. The Yankees, I would have thought, were like a 98 win team going into this year. Now I think they might be more like 92. The Blue Jays, they could win anywhere from 90 to, they win anywhere from like 89 to 100 games. The Rays too. So it's all a toss up. Anyway, all I'm saying is that door is now open. The Yankees have too many deficiencies, too many injuries, too much age, not enough athleticism. They're not well run. They don't make good decisions. And by the way, they have no money to spend at the deadline, which no one's talking about, because Hal obviously doesn't want to go over that 294 number. So that's it. So they have no reinforcements coming behind.
What you have on the team is what you're going with, basically.
Right. And your only hope, as it's been the same hope since 2020, is that, or since 2019, actually, because they were very injured that year. That's when it started, is that your guys are going to come back healthy and be healthy for the playoffs. And I'm tired of hearing that.
Yeah, you can't wait for that.
It never happens. So the floodgates are open. It's not a time that we have to say the Yankees are done. They're very much going to probably have that, plus 500 record. They're probably going to make the playoffs. I don't know what Cashman's going to have up his sleeve. I mean, you can't let this go on for like 2 months.
Yeah.
Where this offense is bad.
Problem is, the only thing you can really do is you can designate 2 players, IKF and Hicks, and you have guys to replace them, but those guys don't really make me feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, the problem this year that the Yankees have that they didn't have before is if Judge isn't Herculean.
Yeah.
Last year this offense was just as bad as 2021. It just Judge was a 12, an
He
11.
carried them. He carried them the whole season.
Yeah. Rizzo had a great start to the year. He kind of fizzled after that. Stanton had a pretty bad year, but he still hit 30 home runs. And then you had like Trevino had a really nice 4 months. Glaber had a really nice first half. I mean, they got contributions, just not the whole year. DJL was really good before he got hurt and had the foot problem. But this year, none of that's happening. Like, you really need Volpe, Peraza, and Cabrera to basically inject pixie dust into this offense. You expect Judge to be a little bit better. You expect Rizzo's actually doing what he should be doing.
Yeah.
You expect Stanton to come back at some point and have a run where he's healthy. Bader should help. But there's not anyone. I don't know who's going to carry this
The
offense.
minute Bader's activated, you have to DFA Hicks.
Yeah, and we'll see if that happens.
But you have to do it you have to give the fans something. You have to give that team something. You have to let them know if you're not going to perform, you're not going to be here.
Yeah. And maybe Rodon and Severino eventually come back and they're really good. These are the things you have to, but all of it's so uncertain. That's why I think the Yankees are more like the 21. This team is more like 2021 than 2022. Which isn't surprising because the end of the 2022 season, they were like the 2021 team.
I think we both agree they're just not a fun team to watch.
No, that's the worst part of all. And I wish people would stop going to the stadium. That's the only thing that's going to ever get through to hell. And I mean that. Like, it will get through to hell if Yankee fans stop going.
We differ on that because I live here. I go to the stadium often, so that is a luxury that I am not ready to give up.
It is very easy for me to say because I'm not going to go there anyway.
Right.
But that's the only path I see that changes this bullshit.
You got to hit him in the pockets.
Yeah. And what makes me even angrier is that even if the Yankees say they just go into a free fall here, say we look up on July 1st and the Yankees are 10 games under 500, unfathomable, I know, but just say it happened. I still don't think they'd fire Boone until the end of the year.
I agree.
And that also makes me mad. Dylan Lawson, by the way, we haven't talked about really. He's in year 2. He came from the Astros. He's their hitting coach, their third hitting coach under Aaron Boone. He's been terrible. There's really no way around it. I mean, I like to give guys a second year, and I said that about Dylan Lawson. I was very excited for the hiring because I figured if you're coming from the Astros and you're analytics driven, we'll get a little bit of that. But we're not. We're getting the opposite.
We've been worse. Yeah, we've been worse. Yeah.
We got worse.
I never thought I'd say this. Go get Kevin Long back.
Well, what it means is that Marcus Timms was the scapegoat.
Yeah.
There's something I think
we both liked Timms. All the players talked well about him. It was just, we knew Timms wasn't the problem.
Right.
And this just solidifies it.
At this point, it goes above that. And I do think you can't discount the fact Aaron Boone's lineups are nonsensical and they're inconsistent and they don't make any sense. That's part of the problem. It's not the whole problem. It's part of it. And the other thing is Brian Cashman does not know how to put together a modern day offense. It's that simple. This team is not ready. Even if they were healthy and playing well, they're still not the formula. You cannot, with 7 righties and 1 switch-hitted light hitter and 1 lefty, go into a postseason series against elite pitching staffs with a bunch of guys who cannot drive runners home with runners in scoring position. They're allergic to it. You can't do that. Even if you hit 250 home runs a year, even if you are first or second or third in runs scored in the regular season, that offense does not work in the playoffs. We see it year in and year out. The 2021 Braves were a little bit of a weird exception. Those were guys, though, that at least are smart hitters who might have been all or nothing. The Yankees are the lowest IQ, dumbest team in the major leagues. I've said it for years. They're as dumb as doornails.
I do want to address 2 comments about how I hate the narrative that George Steinbrenner was like this genius owner. He was a terrible owner when it came to running the team. Yeah, he was fun. He was exciting. He was loud. He threw his money around. the Yankees started to win when he was away from them.
Yep.
And Hank Steinbrenner was terrible too. He had
Yep.
one job, signed one contract, and fucked that up bad.
Yeah.
So Hal is the better of the three, but we need Hal to grow balls like his dad.
Yeah, he's too far to the other extreme. So George, I totally agree with you. Very overrated for what his reputation was. I do think he's a Hall of Fame figure in baseball
I
because of
agree.
what he did, like the franchise results, first of all, but just
Of course.
how he was as an owner. I do think he's a Hall of Fame guy. But you're right, Stick Michael built, and Bob Watson after
And
him.
Bob Watson,
built-
yes.
Yes, built that Yankees dynasty. It wasn't Steinbrenner's antics of going out and signing everyone, which is a narrative Yankee haters want to have, is that, oh, they only won because they went and signed every free agent. That's not true. The team won because of the core, which was developed through the farm system. Yes, we
It
could
really is the
extend
core
them.
five, not the core four. I hate
Yes,
that
it's
Bernie
Bernie
always gets
Williams.
excluded.
It's terrible disrespect. And even a lot of those like side guys, like the Ricky Ladays of the world, who came up throughout that tenure, were also homegrown guys like that. Yes, they had the money to extend them, and that's when the payroll really exploded. But they built that team, and they built them to win. Steinbrenner didn't. His antics didn't work. And it really put us in a bad spot after that 2009 World Series. I mean, he was pretty much done by 2006, but
Yeah.
we were in a really bad spot as a franchise around 2013. And when Hank first was the owner for that very brief period of time, I was like, we can't have this. Like, that is a terrible decision. He was so
Signed
unstable.
A-Rod. The A-Rod was his only signing, and it was like they just circumvented the agents and went around Brian Cashman, and it was just like, I'm going to him. This is what I want. They gave him the, and it was just terrible.
Yeah. I was
And
like,
Hal
we
said,
need
give
to
me the
have-
fucking franchise. You're not doing anything. By the
Yeah,
way,
but
Hank is dead.
now-
Hank is dead. For
Yes.
those who don't know, he died like 2
Yes.
years ago.
Now, modern day, I don't want either. Like that, we need something in the middle. Like there has to be an owner who could say, all right, I'm going to invest because the revenue tax isn't shit to me. I'm making 600 million a year in
Mark
revenues.
Cuban.
We need to invest when the time is right. And if my GM is not investing my money properly and he's wasting 125 million a year, he needs to go. And if my manager is, yeah, he's winning games, but I'm spending 290 million to win them. If he's not getting me far into the playoffs, like, I'm sorry, that's what the expectation is here. We have different expectations, and that's not a pretentious thing. It's just what the Yankees are. For 30 years, their floor has been over 500.
Yeah.
We are not a Seattle Mariners happy to be there last year. And this is historical trend. I'm not talking like as a fan. I'm talking about if you look at the Yankees, where they should be going is to a World Series, because that has to be their next step. If your manager's not doing that, he's got to go. And by the way, if your GM extends that manager and then the manager's still not doing that, he has to go for that reason too.
Yeah, we both hated that extension. I didn't understand extending Boone at all. I just didn't. I thought that for sure the way that season ended, that was gonna just crush any chances of him getting an extension, and then he just gets 4 years.
They were so sterile after that 2021 season as a franchise, almost to the point of needing to apologize. That was, I think, when that dipshit was said that the rest of the league caught up, or whatever this stupid statement was.
Yeah.
If you make a statement like that, and at that point too, in 2021, they had regressed back-to-back years. He's got to go. Joe Torre was fired for far less, and Joe Girardi was fired for even less than that. It just doesn't make any sense. I know, like, Hal is a guy who wants a sustainable business model and he wants stability, but you are also in an entertainment field and you're in a competitive field, and you have to respect that. And that's where it's Hal's fault. He has to understand you could love Brian Cashman like your son, and and Brian Cashman can love Aaron Boone like his son. If they're not performing, you got to cut them out of the family. It's that simple. So
you got to cut out the cancer.
Yeah, so that's where the Yankees are totally they're unstable because they're too stable. That's where they are. So if you want to talk to me into the Blue Jays could win that division because they have more young talent, I could believe it. If you want to talk to me into the Rays can win that division because look at the start they're on, and they're the Rays, and they too have a pretty high floor, I could believe it. I will not believe the Orioles or Red Sox will win the division.
No.
And I don't think either of them are going to finish with a better record than the Yankees. But the Yankees can be a third place team, and I wouldn't bat an eye. And that's partly a testament to our division. It's also partly a testament to how incompetent and poorly run they are. So that's where
I still think they're gonna finish. Maybe it's my homerism, maybe it's the fandom, but I think they turn it around. The season is long enough, and we've seen this many times.
On one hand, I look at like their 2013, 2014 roster. I'll point this out to anyone for as long as I live. Go look at those Yankee rosters. Those teams won in the mid-80s.
Right.
If you put that roster for whatever reason, and I can't explain, I don't have a baseball explanation, I don't have a rational explanation. If you put that exact roster on like 25 MLB teams, they lose 90 games.
Who's the manager?
Joe Girardi should get a lot of credit for those teams, and
Right.
a lot of idiot Yankee fans are like, well, look at how bad we were in 2013, 2014. But I look at it as, look at how good we were given those rosters.
Right.
Aaron Boone's been given fantastic rosters on paper his entire tenure. They went one game short of the World Series the year he took over. Like, that's, no manager gets that situation, especially in a place with resources like New York. So it's incomparable. But I'm telling you, look at the 2013, 2014 Yankees. They lose 90 to 95 games on almost any other team in baseball.
You know what it is when it comes to managers, players, fans, they pick something they don't like and they stay there. There's no such thing as the perfect manager. There's no such thing as a manager that's going to manage the bullpen and personalities and in-game decisions, and they don't exist. You have a really good manager who does a lot of things really well, and you surround him with smart baseball people. That's how you win. And Girardi was that guy.
Yes, Girardi would have been fine. And this isn't, again.
But there is something weird about Girardi. He gets fired wherever he goes.
I think he's difficult to work with.
The teams are still good teams.
Yeah. I think
he won manager of the year twice, and both years got fired that year.
We like to gas up Girardi, and rightfully so, because he is without a doubt a better manager than Boone. But you can't ignore what happened with the Phillies last year. I mean, he obviously lost the narrative in that clubhouse, and Rob Thompson was the better fit, also a former Yankee. So you can't. I mean, Girardi's not perfect, like you said. There's no even Francona has this. By the way, Francona's been defeated by Aaron Boone twice in the playoffs. So think about that for a second. A manager can't cover up a roster, and he's not perfect.
Right.
But and to give you an idea, by the way, because everyone looks at me and they're like, you are the ringleader of Aaron Boone hatred. And don't get me wrong, I hate his guts. But if you look deeper into some Yankee fandom, as we do, there are guys who think Aaron Boone's the worst manager in baseball. And I don't think that's true, because I think there's 4 or 5 managers out there, maybe more, who do the exact same thing Aaron Boone does. So I'm not even saying he's the worst manager in baseball. I'm saying for a Yankee franchise to go all in on this guy, and really Mike Fishman in analytics never ever gets talked about, and he should, because he needs to be fired too. To go all in on this for 5 years now and have the results that you have, which is 0 World Series appearances,
nothing to
2
show.
ALCS wins combined, and 2 division series wins in 5 years is not acceptable for your analytics department. It's not acceptable for your manager, and it's not acceptable for your GM. Case in point, end of day. And by the way, also 2 division titles in that span. So that's where it's at. The Rays could win the division. The Blue Jays could win the division. I don't know that I'm switching any of my choices yet either. All I'm saying is that the Yankees very, very clearly are A, not enjoyable, and B, I just cannot pick them based on their potential anymore, because they'll never reach it.
Yeah.
That's it. So we spent the last, I think, 30 minutes on the AL East. Got through the entire NL in about 50 minutes, but here we are. We're going to try again in May at some point. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's kind of a equal parts. We feel like at least once a month we should find a way to be on.
Yeah, I like the once a month schedule.
Yeah, but obviously if stuff actually happened and it deserves an episode, we'd do it. But we are, again, not a Yankee fan talking, but we're in April baseball. It's fun to follow. I watch games every day, but there's not a whole lot to speculate or go into these deep conversations on. But this was a nice checkpoint, see where everything's at, clarify a few of the reasons people unwarrantedly hate me. It's not a word.
Better you than me. I'm usually the one that gets all the hate.
Yeah, you've been a little more quiet than I have, I think, in these chats with your taxes and everything else going on. So I'm taking the brunt of it. Rangers fans don't like me, Angels fans don't like me. This is
It is
Rays
what it is.
fans, both of them don't like me.
Did the
Angel
guy-
Morales actually likes me a lot, I think.
Did the guys decide if they're doing a draft show?
I don't know. It's good.
Okay.
I don't think that's in what, 2 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got something to look forward to this week. Rangers Devils in a 2-2 series tie now. So that makes me very uncomfortable because now I don't know who's going to win a home game. By the way, Heat about to go up 3-1 on the Bucks.
I just got a text from my son that said this Heat game is crazy in giant caps.
They need Giannis to be held. That only makes me. I like when I kind of have a soft spot for the Heat, despite the entire '90s rivalry with the Knicks. It makes me uncomfortable because it leads the path to the Celtics to get back to the finals. I don't like that.
When you load manage your guy and then he gets hurt in the playoffs, that's a bad look.
It's bad. Yeah, Lightning look like they're going to even up the series with.
Leon said Jimmy dropped 51.
Jimmy Butler is that guy. I've always loved Jimmy Butler.
Playoff Jimmy Butler is that guy. Yes.
Yeah, he is absolutely balls to the wall in big spots.
I would imagine we're gonna have a step back podcast shortly.
Hopefully, yeah. Like this is your time, Leon. Like if you ever wanted to engage me into your podcast, this is the time. I'm absolutely watching NBA playoff basketball, which happens twice or once a decade.
Listen, the Knicks are exciting, man.
They are.
The Knicks are very, very exciting.
Oh, we can talk about the whole New York ecosystem right now.
Yeah.
The Yankees are the least enjoyable team in all of New York that I root for right now. And I mean that sincerely. They have the highest floor by far.
You roots for the Giants, so I would say it's the Giants.
Giants won a playoff game. They've got a great coaching staff.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy about Daniel Jones long term, but like the Giants are making moves that are smart. I'm excited for their draft. They've got young talent, not a lot of it, but they've got some. Now I always make this caveat. I would not choose Giants fandom over Yankees fandom any day of the week. In fact, I wouldn't choose any fandom on the planet over Yankees fandom any day of the week.
Which is why it hurts more. That's exactly it. We're
that's
more
why it's
passionate
so
about the Yankees
frustrating.
than every other New York team, and it hurts more because you're so invested emotionally.
What's so frustrating about the Yankees is their floor is making the playoffs, and right now their ceiling is losing in the playoffs. So there's not a whole lot of stuff to celebrate.
Baseball fans get mad when Yankee fans boo their players, and I tell people, if you come to New York and you come to a game and you get to experience baseball in New York, it's very different than it is anywhere else. I don't want to hear we're crass, we're low class. Fuck you. If I want to boo a guy, I'm going to boo a guy.
No,
That's
it
just
is.
the way it is.
It is. I've been now to 15 other stadiums, and I've been to Houston in a Yankees Astros game 1 playoff game. Quiet as a church.
If you sing "God Bless America" or the national anthem and you sound like shit, you're gonna get booed. That's just the way it is here.
Yeah, So the caveat there is I know what I've got as a Yankee fan. I'm not trying to make a statement otherwise. All I'm saying is that right now I trust the Giants coaching staff and GM. I really like them. The Rangers are a contender. It's gonna be really tough to beat the Bruins or Lightning. Like they scare the shit out of me, but the Yankees are a contender. They've got a bunch of guys in their prime. They went all in this year, which is something we don't really see from the Yankees often. And the Knicks are fun. Like the Knicks are, like you said, the Knicks for modern basketball, they do the things that they're supposed to do well.
Yep.
They hit threes. Jalen Brunson is like one of my quickly rising favorite athletes in New York. Like that's a guy who is fit for New York. He gets it. RJ Barrett is a
Don't
guy, you
get me
know.
started on RJ. Me and Jacob were talking about RJ is such a frustrating player to root
Yes,
for.
he is. He's Glaber Torres. That's the basketball Glaber
Yeah,
Torres.
just about.
Yeah, Glaber's had some really good postseasons. He's had some really good half seasons. He's never had a great regular season and postseason.
I don't
RJ
think we should
Barrett.
get too deep. I don't want to take these guys shine because that's what they do.
Yeah, sorry, you're right. We'll save the rest. If you want to tune in, we do have the Step Back podcast. Jacob and Leon do a great job with that. All I'm saying is I'm excited about the NBA. That happens once a decade. So this is a good time to capitalize on that, especially during the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
Football, we've got the NFL draft in a couple of days. That's always a big crowd pleaser. And hockey, we're also in the playoffs. We don't have any hockey podcast, but I will obviously mention it for as long as the Rangers are in the playoffs. So that's where we're at. We'll see you sometime in May. Feel free to shoot like topics throughout the month.
Definitely.
You know, we'll write them down. We'll try and get to them if you want to address them. But this has been Henry Maldonado and Vince Mercandetti. This has been Dong City. Everyone have a great night.
Dong City, bitches.